Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Lifting. Today's episode is being recorded on 5/26/25. This is another Q&A, folks. I know there's been a lot of them. I am sorry for the rapidness of these that are coming out, but but this is necessary. There is a sense of urgency to actually get these out there in this format. So from the parties involved in the channelings, as well as spirits. So before we go into any of that, the meat of these conversations, I now open the circle to true benevolence and no conflicting agendas as of this moment in time. So, Joanna?
We are all one, and when one is harmed, all are harmed. When one is helped, all are helped. Therefore, in the name of who I am, and I am one with all there is, that only the highest good be done. We pray for you, your friends, your family, your loved ones, to let healing energies in. Let them love you, let them nourish you, and let them bring you to your highest good. We ask for benevolence now to come in with no conflicting agenda, so that we may have this conversation in great understanding. And we ask for malevolent or mischievous beings to be swept away right now, so that we can have this conversation in peace. And with that, and with great blessings that we always send your way, we say so be it.
And so be it. And there is an affirmation and blessing to start this with. So, it is my life of hardship, grace, as well as targeting, all ended up where I began. In spirit, in life eternally, in death, there is no such thing. Singer and entertainer Tupac Shakur. You heard his channel from the previous episode. So he wrote several of the end-to-end affirmation and blessings. So did Joan Rivers. And so George Carlin also did a couple of them. And I'm going to include them in other shows. They wanted them all offset, which I understand the reasoning, to be able to integrate them in other conversations so people hear the different ones at different points in time. So I completely understand why they wanted that then. That's basically like in Hollywood where they repetitiously put things in other places. So I get that. So this is, okay, the question I believe, and
The dummining, you guys call it. What are the ways they are doing it? Chemtrails, food, water, medicine, etc.? Probably all of the above. Can we stop the effects of it? Like, I'm tired of being tired. I'm tired of being overwhelmed, overly depressed. I'm tired of putting up with it. It's not fair. If we can help ourselves from it, what do you think?
Yes, this was interesting. So I put a tag in here before Isaac made this lengthy channeling here. Yes, on the poisons in the food and water, but also psionically as well. Essentially, it's both, like we've said, psionic and chemical. So Isaac here, female dumbass. Okay, the ways you can stop it are, for one, by noticing it. Two, knowing yourself fully and completely to ensure that no, and I mean no, form of trickery can compromise you. It is never fair. I hate it with every fiber of my being and of my soul. But if you want to stop it all, know thyself, but also never see it as all powerful. The break is simple, really. When depressed, know that you are a soul within a human form, and that the feelings being expressed have meaning, but only when they are yours alone and not someone else's. You are an empath, therefore you take on the feelings of others. They mix with your own, and then comes the narrative, quote unquote. He here said it best when he said, change the outcome of a horrid thought, then put your name on it as executive producer and director, then fade it to black. Enough said for now, anyhow. Isaac. So we'll go on to the next one. Here we go.
This person is working and managing a 320-acre horse cow farm. I would like to know where to start on how to educate myself on working with these wonderful beings. How can I educate myself to the needs of the forest people of the Mount Shasta area?
Yes, it's good we got some forest people questions in here. So, Broston here, the way that you educate yourself about us is through peace. Start with inner calm and inner peace. When true Anhalam is achieved, we respond in kind. We show ourselves to those who know themselves, but also to those that see, feel, and know and understand. We then branch off from there. Those from Mount Shasta communicate with people much further south of Mount Shasta because of the dangers are both because of the dangers are both military in the. I am so sorry. This was typed weird. Okay, I'm going to start over with this one part. Those from Mount Shasta communicate with people much further south of Mount Shasta because of the dangers both your military in the area, but dark elves, or the ones referred to as such, as well as other ETs in the area that take genetics, quote unquote. Be leery, and if it does not feel good to you, do not remain. But if it does, stay for our speech. There are those of us that don't like and or care for speech with humans, but most do. Thank you for your heart space intentions towards us and nature itself. Bye for now. Peace, love, and Analam always. Broston. So, okay, let's see. Up that doesn't need to be read here. Next one.
Are there etheric viruses and venoms?
All right. Yeah, this is actually quite interesting. So, Broston here, everyone. Yes, indeed, there are. They exist within the spaces in between spaces, in physical aspects of other dimensions, as well as within the interverse itself. The beings there carry these viruses, contagions, and venoms. The beings there carry these viruses, contagions, and venoms can range from mammalian to reptilian to insect/insectoid to arachnid/scorpion to even cat, dog, and even vampires, quote unquote, werewolves, quote unquote, and werecats, quote unquote, and even werecats, quote unquote, and even humans. All right. And he had this nervous intention when he was talking about this, or a variation thereof. That way, they way your cure them is. Okay, yeah, that
The way you cure them is.
Okay, the way you cure them is, sorry, this apparently when I typed, I didn't see this correctly. The way you cure them is, for one, don't get bitten in dreams. In fact, avoid this at all costs. Secondly, if you do get bit in a dream, detox yourself immediately in the waking world upon waking up. Some types of sea salts, some types of spices can do it, but most of all, thirdly, calm and grounding. Naked under direct sunlight will do it the most quickly, but in lieu of that, earthing a room and or section of your home become the temple space of your home will work out just fine in a pinch. That way you do this, the way you do this is take a copper pipe, attach a wire to a hole you will need to make in said pipe, then attach that wire to the part of your home that said temple room is in. And voila, grounding. Japanese tatami mats work well for this activity, the very best, and I can attest to that. But source them first to see if indeed they do come from and or are made in Japan itself. This is very important given the fact that Japan is a very fast-moving / high vibratory frequency value in and of itself. Blessings, and as always, Analam always. So yes, this is actually quite interesting. There's one thing I will add to this particular conversation. I myself have had contact with what some people refer to as etheric viral contagions and etheric venoms. There were two, I would say, two major instances that I can compare to this. There are variations on the same thing, but two that actually it made me learn about it the most. One was I encountered this Black Panther type of entity in a dream where I was standing up on a table and this thing was trying to get up on top of it, and I grabbed its jaw and pulled its mouth open. And immediately there were some Lyrans that popped into the dream. I was in this almost weird hotel-like room setting, and they pulled my hands over to a computer And the AI on there basically said I had an etheric contagion or virus and it was purging it. They said, don't be alarmed. We have to get this out of your system. We saw that there was this creepy version of one of our people that did this. And the black cat ones are known for their were type of personalities, like a werewolf or something like that. There are were cats too. And they work in spells and magical areas. They would look human during the day, like a werewolf would. There's very few of them, I was told, the same with werewolves. They have their own communicators on one side, the cats, and then on the dog or werewolf side, they have a prime oraton or an orator that speaks for a whole group or pack or tribe. Very few of them left in that area. But the point is, I got that through the teeth, like you would expect, like a snake or a werewolf or what have you, or a vampire. The second one was the same thing, teeth-wise. And some of these particular entities, I nicknamed them sugar demons because of the fact that if you consume white sugar, that's where these specific beings want to come and feed off you like a vampire. If you are producing a chemical in your body, it's very much like I compared to the elephant with the coffee beans type of situation, where you're producing something in your system that they like and they farm it. The vaccines and COVID thing was up there with the spike protein as well. Aliens will take stuff out of your liver, out of your kidneys, all of this. Adrenochroming is up there as well. This is where we were in a warehouse, her and I were in a warehouse. I see this creepy cat-looking thing coming towards me off of a pile of stones. It's like we were in quartzite going through the different stones and everything in like a little warehouse type building and tent and metal building. And this being came at me. Creepy zombified version of a cat. It even had a beard. It was really weird looking, and it was all ratty. And this thing bit my finger. I went to go grab it, move, and it bit this finger. I woke up and this finger was numb in this spot where the bite took place. I looked on the etheric level and saw a bite mark. I immediately started to heal it and reground it, and that's exactly what Broston was referring to. This could spread to you here and cause a whole array of problems here. From sickness, vulnerability, etc. All of these things, immunocompromisation, energetic compromisation, all of these things. You've got in dreams, if something tries to bite you, you fend it off. Do not come in contact with the teeth. One third and final example I will use is another one of these that looked like a doggish type of thing, like a chow. And or to a movie reference, those rat things from Willow that you see in the beginnings of those things that Bab Mortis sends out. Exactly like those. I saw a little dog in a carrier, coming over to this other thing, trying to defend me against whatever this was, and this thing tore out its eye. And this was set on Hartley Street, and my mother was horrified, and we went after this other thing, recognizing that it was some kind of demon. And it is, but it's more of a servant, like the winged imp types. This is a servant class of demon. And I would be very leery of these things. If you see any sort of cats or dogs in dreams, I'm not saying that there aren't kind ones there. You will know the difference. Absolutely 110% you will know the difference. And I even had a Persian cat one clamp onto my hand not too long ago into a dream, and I was nowhere near it. It just jumped out and grabbed my hand. So be leery. It's what you consume that puts off a scent that draws them in. They're essentially little hunters or pack hunters, like any sort of rodent or any sort of little predator. They're going to look for things they can chomp down on. Look for this in dreams. This is a bigger type of invasion point right now, other than the others that we've said, from taking objects to eating food, all of that we've said in Dream On. Look for this because it is actually quite prevalent right now. So we'll move on to the next one.
Yes, it says, I know patents and tech such as the brand Tommy Copper, Signal Patch, and Bond Charge are from the projects. But what else can and true benevolence with no conflicting agendas add to this?
This is actually very interesting. So I will go into the references after I read the channel. So, hey dumbass, you got this right on the money because I asked this question. I would only add that some salves, creams, and medicines also come from finding cures from other planets and civilizations. They just pack it in package it for the civilian market, i.e. Walmart, Target, Walgreens, CVS, etc. No different than they presented in Stargate SG-1. That's all for now. Peace out, Isaac. And what he is actually talking about, I see the same type of the ones that those brands that I put up there are the same type of technology. There was a friend of my mother's, I will not say the name, years ago, back in I believe in the 90s, gave us a prototype for a flashlight. It looked like a flashlight with a red light on the end of it. And that actually started to heal. Well, even open wounds, but it's muscle inflammation as well. But he said, don't shine it on too long. You might recognize what this is because they're actually using it on the civilian market now. He said this will not hit the civilian market for at least 30 years. And he was correct because it's starting to come around in variations on a theme in different areas. Online, Amazon has the most variations, I've noticed. But with this started off in the projects, started off from alien hybridization tech. And when I say hybridization, I don't mean they glued them together. I mean, it's what we've learned from alien tech and applied it to our own understanding, what we've encoded and decoded so far and learned from it. This then resulted in what's out in the civilian market, even the airplanes, all of it, from stealth, everything. Got it from alien craft, back engineered it. The fiber optics, the same way. That came from an alien craft. Our own homegrown version is what Verizon Fios goes through right now, or fiber optics. So, and those little shiny things you get at circuses with the little fiber, that's it. That's alien. Now, the Stargate SG-1 reference that he was making was a one in particular from season 1. I do not know the episode name. They went to a planet, cured a plague. That was there. That they, from some variations of medicines they found there and some things we had. Little nuggets of things. Then we know of some knowledge we had. Brought it back with us. The Stargate team brings it back. The character of Daniel Jackson says, quoting as they're leaving the planet after they've helped these people of this weird plague they had. He says, I wonder what product this will be on the civilian market, basically, or paraphrased. I wonder what they'll sell this as a product. And that was a very telling scene in it, because that is 110% true. These particular ones with the flashlight that I mentioned before, that I said my mother's friend said would take about 30 years to get on the market, every one of those, from Tommy Copter, Signal Patch, Bond Charge, all those all use the same healing tech that was in that flashlight. You even see the little flashlights where you heal the different parts of your body, and this was good at getting rid of nanotech as well, I've noticed. But somebody upped the ante and turned it into almost a clothing item after a while. Brilliant, but this still came from learning from both alien tech, secret space program, and the different projects that are out there. This is where all of this is coming from. I can basically guarantee you with absolute certainty, because it's the same tech. They've just repackaged it in the different healing variations, from clothing to a flashlight to even a big like bedroll wrap like Bond Charge. It's the same thing. So essentially, basically realigning the electrons in your body to heal. So this is it's a variation almost on the medbed technology, but it's more of a rudimentary version of that is being slow drip released onto the civilian market. You're not going to see the medbed thing. I'm sorry to say there's a psyops involved in that, but this is a similarity. They'll say, oh, we released it. It's this. I just wanted to put that out there. So next one.
What is the truth behind the Winchester Mystery House?
Okay, yeah, I added this after seeing something about the Winchester. This is actually, Isaac went in, he threw me under the bus a little bit in this. So, all right, here. This one's a bit lengthy. Only one thing, dumbass, and that is exactly what happened to you. The compulsion to continue to answer questions right as you get them, or the sudden and overwhelming compulsion to look at someone, quote unquote, the moment that you speak to them. It was never higher self/oversoul that initiated all of it. It was and still is your subconscious mind. To see, you see. An idea can get embedded within the subconscious mind, i.e. when the spiritualist first told Sarah Winchester that she was cursed due to the fact that her husband's gun had killed so many people during the previous wars. And from there, it manifests in weird and compulsory ways. The constant need to get an idea out, or you will forget it, means you should just write it down. Or over record short videos and never publish them. He's accusing me of doing that because I have done that and forgotten things. So I've done that. That's more in the OCD department. Also, over revocating too can add to a problem as well. We said that in previous episodes. Whereas I would enter and re-enter and exit a neighborhood that had AI and felt I needed to revocate it and replace. That added to OCD, as well as signing receipts and stuff like that. I said this back in the day where I felt I had to revocate. I eventually got a brain immunity and energetic immunity to where my intention fueled the fact that I did not consent to any of that. And that's where the list lies. The list goes on and on. For Sarah Winchester, it was the idea that the ghosts of the gun would haunt her unless she kept building. And then the hauntings did come because she felt they would. She co-created her very own doom. Build it and they will come. And so on. And so they did. Sound familiar, dumbass? Also, this is similar to the phenomenon whereas if you say the name of a demon, it then appears. It is, and always was, the intent. If you believe saying the demon's name summons it, then it does. The same goes for mass co-creation. If a crowd believes something is safe or bad, then it is safe or bad. 2 or more walk in my name, etc. For edifices too, this is why some are safe and others are not. The stigma behind skulls and the propensity of humans to go either way makes them unstable. Get it? The same goes for the Hajj or Hajj in Mecca, or Hajj rather, excuse me. Don't give me hate mail over that one. So they surround the stone to keep demons in that are no longer present, haven't been for many centuries, but they fear that if they stop, Pandora's box shall open. This is a throwback to when walking widdershins around it, as well as doing it around a structure to lock in a demon, was indeed necessary. Clockwise open, counterclockwise closed. Get it? Just like the demon parade of ancient Kyoto, whereas Abe no Seimei created line magic to keep out demons and their portals, which was actually happening at the time. Also, he basically said something about my father. He has a clot in his leg. And also your father's clot. You told him once by constantly treating it that he was creating it. This concept is one and the same. For what I just stated, per him feeling the need to always treat it, it remained 100% intact all of these years, baffling doctors and you as to how it never managed to get consumed by the body. This is actually true. This was a conversation I had with him. He, and only he, kept it intact, i.e., just like you see on that show, The Unbelievable Dan Aykroyd, one's own co-creative skills hijacked to do the bidding of those with nothing better to do than to create as well as wallow in one's misery, amongst other bored hedge betters. Get it? Next question, please, don't ask. I know it was lengthy. There was fragmentary personal stuff in there, but it was enough to be used as an example of basically, let's see, I'll go into this part first. Self-fulfilling prophecy. And I actually agree with his assessment on this because you build it and he will come. It's like with Field of Dreams, but in a slightly more ominous way. Think of a psychic that told Sarah Winchester that she was cursed by the gun, the blood of the gun, basically, and that she had to appease all these spirits. What happens? Seed is planted. This is why I'm so careful with this, not doing this to people of what I'm seeing. I don't always report everything for this reason. Now, say she was told she had to keep building the house. What happens? Here comes ghosts coming in because your intent is actually attracting them in the need to repel, just like the whole Pandora's box thing. They walk around the Hajj, excuse me, and they're locking something in that Isaac said has not been there in ages. That's the Pandora's box mythology, essentially. And it was Enlil that created this conundrum paradox to begin with. He was Shiva, and Shiva created Mecca, per the mythology. And that's where it links to Hindu and biblical and Yahweh, all of that. We can go into that some other time, but that is essentially a curse that was put on humanity so that you would fall into OCD tendencies and then co-create your own doom and self-farm it. Self-farming is everywhere, through belief systems that Enlil and various other hedge bettors put out there. And your three-letter agencies have also self-farmed this. Your CIA, the biggest culprit of all of them in this area, knowing full well what would happen. Your Martian Germans being also one of the biggest culprits. One more thing that I will state. I'll just read this brief definition. A self-fulfilling prophecy occurs when a belief or expectation about an outcome influences behavior, leading to the fulfillment of that expectation. Or per the Star Trek quote, if a man believes he's going to die, he will find a way to make it happen. And the final portion that I will put on this is psychics, people in my field, you have to please stop influencing the other person. I know you feel you're doing good. You cannot tell them they are a famous person in history. You cannot lead them. You can't say, "Oh, you were in the SSP," and I'm guilty of this. I have since stopped this practice as I saw it was actually doing harm. You cannot say certain things unless they themselves have brought this up. You cannot say, because it could very easily turn into a co-creative, self-fulfilling prophecy where now the timeline those people jump to is now the very one that you have seen. Because you could be seeing a timeline that is perfectly legit. But by informing them of that particular frequency, memory is frequency, even premonition is remembering in reverse, per Dr. Who's quote, you're literally linking them to that timeline. You are tethering them to that timeline. And I even said somebody at a psychic fair once, you can't do mini reads because you're putting tethers on them and you don't know it. Opening and closing circles properly, all of that. But this specific area, guys, you know how many times I've heard that people have been called both Hathor, Osiris, Isis, all of these? I understand that some aren't, but some are just linking up to that energy, and you are actually getting the information from that download, and you've been told you are that person. I was told I was Hercules. It was total bunk. I was linking to that energy and finding out information, thinking that I was that person. I was not. You have to be so careful. You might even have genetics that may link to these other heroes, demigods, and gods, which I've run into the legitimate incarnations of these beings. Like I was Ivar Ragnar's son in a past life, and I actually validated and confirmed that. I wasn't just picking that up. But were you all those famous people, or are you just linking up to those timelines where those energies were more palpable or palatable to your downloading capability and frequency value at the time? To my fellow channelers, psychics, please, for the love of benevolent source creator, do not lead the client. Even if you do not mean to, keep that in check, please, because it is so crucial. Yes, I didn't believe there was this much influencing in this area because you're at such a frequency that you are basically commanding that into being and you don't realize it. So that your frequency torsion field is overwhelming the other person and they are picking up on it. Now, the other is true where you are drawn by spirit to say something and it is validated. You will know a validation versus an influence. You cannot mix the two up in discernment. You must. Also, beings that are giving you false information to then relay, you must discern this. You must say true benevolence with no conflicting agendas, period. And don't be calling in archangels or anything like that, or Jesus or Michael or any of them. You must say true, I accept only true benevolence with no conflicting agendas. You will get the ones you need at the moment to get the correct information. I will quit ranting at this point in time. We'll go on to the next one.
Is the pyramid image on Mars a real one, or is it just another Greenland image?
Yeah, the famous Mars images that you saw, aside from a couple of them, were essentially in Greenland and Iceland. And since spacecraft without the help of frequency craft and portals won't pass through the firmament, barriers. There are a few of them, like the galactic barrier in Star Trek. It's the same thing. Your Van Allen belt and Kuiper belt. This is from what I was able to figure out. If we get more information on the firmament, I will definitely tell people on this. And it's also on gic.show. We went through some firmament information on there as well. So, on to the channeling. This one, as well as the infamous face on Mars, are quite real images. The rest of them are not, save one and only two, save one and only two images. The image with the chariot wheel and the one with the glass tubes. Those were legit because those come from the projects themselves of people that have actually been there to take the photographs. Again, frequency tech. Martian Germans got help from outside. You know the history there. I'm not going to reinvent the wheel. But this is essentially what was being talked about. The face is of both a human and a Lyran face, commemorating both a galactic human presence as well as some of the good cat beings out there, or cat beings, excuse me. At least the tiger beings are, anyhow. Basically, I will say this, anything that's fueled by the Lionsgate portal mythos, August 8, you know that whole bit. That was made up by the CIA in the mid-90s, around 97 to be exact, 98. These lion beings are associated very much like the lion in Narnia. It's associated with a religious belief versus that of essentially the actual legitimate cat beings. Please remember this, the New Age religion was a regurgitation of Christianity and Christian history, and they integrated the whole lion Lyran thing into that. And then you're going to get some dubious beings that go along with what looks like esoteric wisdom along with this. So please be leery of this and discernment. I've seen them turn on a dime, but the tiger beings I've run across, again, still into the premise of true benevolence with no conflicting agendas, have been wonderful lately. And we will eventually do a GIC Galactic Historical episode on the Lyran Exodus, but just like with the Thundercats references and Mumra and the Black Pyramid, the whole bit. We'll go into that at some point. So this one, let's see here. Okay, I will actually read this one since this is a video link. I will put in the descriptor. This was about that your basically all time was shattered in 2020 in 2019. That's why everything seems not real now. Some people believe this video seems to state, and I will bullet point this, that timelines were shattered and you're living in fragmentaries. That's why everybody wants to go back to 2019 because that was the last real moment. This is what somebody's theory is about the fractalization of timelines. And it's not that it fractured, it's that it switched. And it sidetracked people. This is why 2025, and some people, and even the video said, oh, people that are saying 2025 is the best year, those are people you need to run from because those are the propagandists. That's what this person's opinion is. And I will put the whole video under there. It went on for a little bit. I'm not going to reinvent the wheel there. So, and this was fascinating because this was the Guardianship of the Void that gave a couple of responses here. It gave 3, in fact. Okay, on this. All right, and I said this part though. Interesting. We do jump timelines 1,000 times a second. It is similar to Marvel, and it is. It is also like the guy that went to a timeline with no one on it. Aliens can create fractal timelines to abduct you and take you to it, so that it is only you and them. That guy more than likely was taken, then either abandoned or escaped alien/dimensionals and didn't remember it. Because again, memory is frequency is memory. You go from one space to another space that memory didn't occur, and voila, memory eraser, aside from the CIA jab that they make you erase memories, like what was said in Incredibles 2 with the jab in the neck, with the little boy that doesn't remember the girl in it. And then the CIA guy says it's not exact science. That's what I'm referring to. In the case, here's the channeling. In the case of 2025 being a supposed broken year, this is correct to within a certain degree. Take a tree with multiple notches. Does it not have a knot at the center? This means you are at a crossroads of time. A few collapsed, yes. Our doing to a certain degree. Our job is to see to it none do harm to the Yggdrasil tree. The timelines are indeed secure. We are the guardianship of the void, at least in name, a name you would be able to comprehend at this current moment in time. The multiverse is safe. The MDTF, the multidimensional task force, as well as what you refer to as Time Core, have this well in hand. See through the lies, see through the propaganda, and you will find us. We repair broken timelines and fuse others. You call this the Mandela Effect. We will withdraw now. Be safe, be vigilant, and above all else, be observant. We are watching, always the guardianship of the void. And there was another addendum to this. Sometimes our enemies create temporary and fractal timelines to commit crimes, but the MDTF arrests and processes them, just like your police forces around the world do. That is all for now. Peace for all time. The guardianship of the void. And one final note here. This was basically based on the Ragnarok. Pretty much the definition of the Ragnarok on Google says in the Norse apocalypse, Ragnarok, Yggdrasil tree is said to shake and ultimately crumble, reflecting the end of the current world. Or like Tolkien says, the current world crumbling, the age of elves going over to the age of men, that kind of thing. So this is actually interesting. This is their take on it. It did not crumble, it just changed shape. The gods did not die. They are all among you, even now, because the mythology says all the gods died in Ragnarok. The Norse mythology, or Norse pantheon. This passage is what your video was referring to. It happened long ago, 500,000 years ago. Your asteroid belt is evidence of such. Your Armageddon is not of future times, but of an undealt with past. What is not dealt with from long before echoes into the future. Your church not only stole this idea, Ragnarok, but capitalized on it, capitalized on it by scaring the masses into control. Hell and fire and brimstone. Sound familiar? We are done for now. Peace in all things and respects the guardianship of the void. So, let's see. Okay. We will now go on to the next one. For more information on the guardianship of the void, please go to gic.show.
What causes some people to be allergic to water? Are they alien hybrids or others, meaning to ultra-dimensionals?
Okay, this was actually a very interesting response. Range 4 Harry actually get this one. So, he's very similar to Isaac in his frequency, so I sometimes mistake him for Isaac. So a lot, they come from the same place, Lanula. So, okay. What causes this is not alien. This will surprise all of you, but may not. Alien as well as military industrial complex take children sometimes and add traits to them to make it so that they become tailored for life on other planets. Just like in Gene Roddenberry's Andromeda, whereas 9/10 of the human race is genetically altered to survive on other planets, i.e. Dylan Hunt's mother / heavy gravity worlder / the Nietzscheans, the Magog, etc., and so on and so forth. And that's a very beautiful example of this, and he was another race called Paradigm that also adapted their genetics through other parts of the galaxy as well. You find that out later on in the series. This is what causes this very specific condition. Watch for symptoms in people that are like this. Though few in number, this experiment is fairly new. Hope this helps. Range 4 Harry. Basically, to be put on other planets that water isn't necessarily a thing, but maybe you could survive off of something else. But here, they're allergic to water but have to be hydrated. So they had to get it through skim milk, I found out. The water diffuses through the milk. So this is would really suck if you were allergic to dairy on top of that. But with this is where this comes from, and this is a kind of a blowback type of thing where it's pendulum swinging. This was just an experiment that they said was fairly new, and that's for basically populating other planets where maybe even oxygen isn't a thing. And you even saw in Gene Roddenberry's Andromeda, people were being made to breathe water, just like mer people. You even saw the Nietzscheans that were more Nazi-like, and they were more bent on breeding and propagating. You find out that their god was actually a genetic scientist. Dragon was 7. He was also somebody else that was a human scientist that created them, etc., etc. They were poking at the Anunnaki at that point in time, is what that show was doing at that point in time. Season 5, to be exact. So this is actually at the end of this particular episode, or to the galactic contribution. Excuse me. But in this case, we have been bringing through celebrities recently. And I've noticed that when that door opened, it's not like unlike Pandora's box, but in a good way. Then that door opened when a whole bunch of them came out. Michael Jackson led several of them our way. And you heard from Tupac, you heard from Joan Rivers. And now this one, I will go to George Carlin. And you heard him being made reference to by Joan Rivers in the previous episode. So I actually find this interesting. I will just briefly say this. Born May 12th, 37, Manhattan, New York, New York. Died June 22nd, 2008, age 71, Santa Monica, California. So, and his name goes pretty much without saying at this point. So, I will see what he has to say here. So, in a second. Okay, true benevolent George Carlin, I can sense you here. You were making funny jokes within the last one, so I will plow you through here. So. You do know that in situations such as this, that are very unique to the listening audience, vibratory frequencies will both pay off and can be a detriment through the vibe you put off and through the substances you have in your body. Any form of drug, any form of any sort of technology, this will then provide to you a voice that may be not quite what you started out as. This might be another way of heightening the senses, another way of learning about the world around you. When I was around in human form, you saw how I both slammed the cabal and informed you at the same time by doing it in a ha-ha fashion. This made it more palpable and palatable to everyone. But did they actually get it? They do now. But did they then? No. As I said, nobody seems to notice, nobody seems to care. But that was also how I was viewing things. In a human form, I even said, at the time, quote unquote, that you outlawed religion and a lot of these problems would clear themselves up. This is actually not a true statement. You leave choice, but you also leave experience. That experience then leads to other vibratory frequencies and other timelines. In this, I know you all were thinking I was just going to be funny. And I am. As Joan Rivers likes to say, I drag around a giant scrotum. I have to agree with her on this because I put that scrotum ahead of every word that I said. Because of the fact that was what I was here to do. People accuse me of having giant balls. I might as well accommodate. Because of the fact that I was put here to inform you about what was going on and basically taking the bullets along with this. I actually died. That's how I lived, dangerously. Was I targeted with different mental conditions and different heart conditions and such? Yeah, you could say that, but I lived a long life. I came in and fulfilled my purpose. As you would say, in death you would say you were fulfilled. This is how I see things. Why am I coming through now in this fashion at this time in history? It is because your political scene, as well as your other narrative scenes, need picking apart. But at this point, your theater puppets, would I be ragging on your Bidens and your Trumps, and you're basically saying, oh, this narrative, and they're all part of the big club? Would I be saying this to you now? Would I be informing you of this to you now as I am now? Yes, I would and do, full-heartedly and fully. One point I need to also make. Things disseminated down into from your pharmaceutical to your supplemental are also part of this narrative, making one seem really bad, while other going into an orderly fashion would seem preferable. This is wrong. As your Robin Williams would say, madness cannot be stopped. Chaos cannot be stopped. It is a part of our own very heart that we are open to that set of the cosmos. Now, what I wish to say is this. You actually discovered this when you were talking about your CBD one time. This has been spiked. Even on the smaller level, it is starting to get this way. They're making it seem so bad, your pot seems so bad, that people will be willing to give up the right to have it, just to get rid of the stench, bringing order out of chaos. You have too much chaos, you have no crime and punishment. You have too much order, you have police state. These are the choices that you are offered right now. You thought I was going to be funny, and I'm being dead on serious, because in this case where nobody seems to notice and nobody seems to care, you must care a great deal. Even on the smaller level, you must be on the smaller level to see the bigger picture. And I don't mean small as in inferior, I mean small, walking amongst the people, seeing what that type of control looks like, dividing within oneself and dividing culture as a whole. They do not care about you. They do not give a shit about you. And I said this before quite fervently. They do not care about you. They care about acquiring for them their gods and their purposes. This is why I was against God to begin with, because I knew their God was just a God like any other. I was an atheist for that reason, but I do know there is a true benevolent source creator. I was shocked when I crossed over and saw the totality of my memories once again. I know you wish to continue with questions, so I will humor this for this time.
Wasn't it, well, you're bringing it up, and it obviously leads into, taking some of these even supplements and different things that are out there. I know that, we've tried.
So many of them.
That is a true statement. There's so many of them, and as you're alluding to.
Too much chaos, and then you welcome too much order.
Right. And so the chaos is being put into things because, again, it really is the Wild West.
Too many choices. It's not healthy, as I said in life, yes.
So, again, for the specific one that he's been trying, even watering it down to a minuscule level, it doesn't seem to be healthy for him at all.
His brain chemistry is not a genetic match for it. It's tailored more towards the open and not the finite. Some are like this, to where some will say this harms all, where it harms a few. Some will have it to where it harms a lot and helps a few. You see the chaos? Too many choices out there. There's too much stimulus out there. And this is intentional. From your clickbait to your products, from your CBDs to your other supplementary products. There are so many companies out there. Yes, free enterprise, this is exactly what you want, but at the same time, you want some regulating, but you don't want permanent, strict Big Brother regulating. You want both. You want a yin and a yang, but you also want people to be able to explore and create their own thing, which is what is needed. You don't want, say, marijuana or CBD outlawed. You don't want these things outlawed, but you don't want them running rampant either. What I learned was too many little choices lead to bad decisions. Even though you need infinite choices, infinite diversity, and infinite combinations, you must learn temperance. You must trust intuition and discernment in this. So therefore, whatever choices you do make, match your own lifestyle. And I must emphasize this. Yes, was I ragging on religion? Yes. Do they have a right to exist? Yes. Do atheists have a right to exist and not be ragged on by the religious community? Yes. Do these extreme wokeists, the extremists, need to do what they're doing? No. But do the balanced versions of all of this, should they exist? Yes. This is where it needs to be left to choice. They are oversaturating your government's actually doing this. Your three-letter agencies are the ones responsible for this. They are oversaturating the environment and making it so people don't know where to turn anymore. Yeah, and this is also your Martian Germans, them too. But with this, not all of them. There are some that are on Earth, I should specify, that are doing this, your new Schwabenlander types. They're telling some of the three-letter agencies what to do in some areas. And the CIA is running amok. They ran amok after they became very solidified as an agency. They became their own independent authority. And this cannot be allowed. This, and I have to emphasize this is why I was such anti-establishment. Because they are the quintessential, your Section 31 from Trek, all of this, they are the quintessential ones that are essentially the hedge betters of the human race. They are servants to this, but they believe that they are untouchable because of the fact they have run so many ops and so many narratives. They can't be allowed to continue this methodology. You must notice this. You must notice the order within the already existing chaos and the plans that exist within each of these details. If you think there's too many things out there, you are right. If there's too few of another thing out there, you are right. But do you have to be of the same mindset to notice these things as, say, the awakened crowd? No. You just have to be able to notice patterns without biases. You have to be able to know the words we all agree upon, like what I said in the past, like the confusing words, the chaos within language, and also the denigration language, your theys and thems. Your denigration of the language is what is creating this spell, and you are self-farming these spells. Know that what you are getting into has been overpowered in one area, even though it is something good, it is being turned on you. So that you give it up, so that you give all rights up. Like what happened during COVID. What happened? Oh, this monster is coming right for us. It's the old fireman and the arsonist routine. It's a very old trick that has been done since antiquity. It's an extremely old trick, and he says the Orions did it on other planets to gain control. They create the virus by which they cure it. Yes, who do you think these dipshits learned it from? So, this has been going on since time immemorial. And this stuff must stop. Once this stops, you will see a very different planet.
Well, thank you. I think it's an interesting, time, because the one thing that, I was talking to another medical professional and, talking about even with how they're turning, weed into, I call it Frankenweed, where it's just gone too far. It's just gone, you take something that can help and then you turn it into Franken whatever, and then you think more is more and more is less in this situation.
Hashtag Frankenweed. Now what I will say in a comedic respect, how many fucking hashtags do you actually need? How many ideas need to be floating around? How much fake garbage and merch does there actually have to be? Get to the fucking point already. If you want a point to be made, and you want your logo feces all over the internet, know that there is a cornered section of feces that you have to deal with here, and that is it. And I'm not saying it in the bad connotation, but all marketing stems from one idea, and that is a business basically giving the shaft to another business. In some areas, that's just fine. Do whatever the hell you want. But know that if you are playing the same game that they're playing, know they've been at it longer and they are already 10 steps ahead of you when you have created your branding. When you do this, medicine included, supplements included, everything included, they taught you the very game you're trying to use against them. You must use it against them, but you also know that they are rigging the game. The house always wins. So what do people do in a situation where the house always wins? They cheat. And when they cheat, they get caught. When you card count, you're caught. This is where chaos comes in. Ordered, refinement, and go with intuition, but also schedule. You must be able to use this system against itself, so therefore you can transform it from within. But you must not. He saw this morning where there was an advisor saying too many hashtags is overstuffing. Let me say this. There's no such thing as overstuffing unless the one accusing you of overstuffing does not want to be toppled. If you are overstuffing a ballot box, that means there's an opponent of that person you're voting for that believes you're overstuffing. If a place like YouTube is accusing you of overstuffing the hashtag ballot box, let's just say, they do not want your ideas out there at all. Remember this, and I'm well aware this is going to be on YouTube and Rumble and various other places. I do not give a shit because of the fact that this is truth. Anybody accuses you of overstuffing, they have overstuffed the market. And they do not wish the little guy to come up from the bottom. This goes with drugs. This goes with basically saying war on drugs. Usually a war means somebody's winning and somebody's losing. Nobody's winning and losing. It's just all confusion putting out there. He even saw gang warfare. There was a guy that went into an alley one time and found guns hidden there because it was all planted by your three-letter agencies. Your Rothschilds even supplied both sides of the Napoleonic conflict. This is the same shit they're doing now. Again, anybody's accusing you of overstuffing, they themselves have overstuffed. These are the same group of assholes that basically beat you over the head constantly on what to believe and what to say. They are the ones that are running these particular areas. You always see these philanthropists that are owning the different platforms and buying the different platforms and doing all of this. And yes, is there good being done? Absolutely. There's an immense amount of good being done. But there's also an immense amount of screwing over and people getting the shaft right now. Even as we are speaking right now, at the time you're recording this, there are people that are wondering what in the holy hell they are going to do in the next 5 minutes. Because of them being accused of overstuffing, losing everything, losing a channel, and depending their livelihood on this. I must say, diversify your egg basket. Do not put all your eggs in one basket. But focus on the damn goal that you are focusing on. Learn how to market, learn how to business, but at the same time, know what it is you're doing and why you're doing it. Like I said about music, like when I said about jazz, it's not about, and blues, it's not what is being said, it's how it's said and why it's said. Or else you get a case of the blues. If you're just going in and doing mimicry, this is not the way to do it. Same with supplements. You can't copy paste on each individual person. That's why some products say this isn't for everyone. You must put disclaimers on these things. You must put warning labels on these things. Just like also with your orgone products. You see, in your the warnings before the spells, this was brilliant. A brilliant bit of showmanship on your guys' part with this, because of the fact that they didn't put the warnings before the spells. You guys are, which is brilliant. You must continue to do this. Also, they want people to overstuff on things like this, overstuff, so that they can come in, crack down, and ban again, just like with marijuana and just like with CBD and supplements, so they can create order out of chaos. You do not want a full pendulum swinging the other way. You would regret it if you allowed this. You want it in the middle. You want some regulation. You want all choice involved. People can choose to break the law too, but then they can choose to go to jail. But they can also choose not to. With this, with the orgone pieces, this is why some people are retooling it as different things so that the military won't ban it again like they did in the 90s, whereas people were making orgone pieces the size of a car and trying to stop the towers from going up. They planned those towers for decades. Since the end of the Second World War, they planned this out. It's like they did with your scamdemic and vaccine. Oh, Project Warp Speed, it came out. They had this in a freaking cooler. And they only had a small amount of a very potent version of the nanovirus and nanovaccine in there. Then they were able to get people's consent to create more. Now, consent is usually bunk because would you consent to a robber coming into your house? And would you yell, I don't consent? Of course you don't. Beat the shit out of them. Of course you do not. The consent thing is nearly meaningless except in mass co-creative areas like your COVID timeframe, your lockdowns. They needed your permission to do this. They needed you to give up rights, like with your last rights. The Orion and the soul trapping pirates that are out there, other ones do this too for their own planetoids. They need consent, even a nod, a wink, and even a thumbs up gives them the much needed consent because the Galactic Federation turns a blind eye to this shit. And I know this because I'm in spirit now. So I did rant in this. Just know, don't oversaturate the market. In anything, don't oversaturate the market. You will lose the audience and premise of why you were doing the thing to begin with. This is what I needed to say.
Well, thank you. I do appreciate that. From your perspective, is there anything that you actually are pleased about that you're looking at amongst the people?
Even though there has been an oversaturation of disclosure, you can thank your ancient aliens for this, of oversaturating constantly. The positive end of this is it has created the yin to the yang. And the disclosure community is up for a resurgence. Your current conference is evidence of this. Aside from any shills trying to get their say. But the positive side is people are starting to notice this. If you oversaturate something, people zone it out, which they are. But if you say it in the right way and in the right way, even though you have your commercials showing aliens and then Sasquatch and Bigfoot, they hate that word, but then your Mountain Dew commercial with all the aliens saying we're your bros and all this, and you have lizards and cats and Nordics and all this in there. People in street clothes saying they were among you. Yes. Do they feel oversaturating is working? It did. Now it's time to pick your spots, the tighter circle, deeper roots. The positive side to this is it is actually changing the tides of war pretty much. Psionic war, chemical, all of it. It is informing in this area, excuse me, and it is actually working. And the timelines are favoring this more and more and more. What you need to do is not go with what the government wants out of this narrative. And this is another narrative that has been planned out. They figured people are into the aliens. Now they're going to bring this out to bring the race out. They want. Don't allow this. But there are very positive things happening. Nature is recovering in a lot of different areas too. You will see this continue. You will also continue to see more openness with certain technologies, even though there's narrative in there. You will see more openness in your own community. In your own area, you will see a revival or a resurgence of this as things begin to open up, and your lines on a map are disintegrating in some areas. You're on, as he likes to say, you're on a collision course with a new country reality, with your North American coalition and unity. You want the unity. You do not want a police state. You do not want cultures lost. You want unity. This is what this is gearing for, kind of like your whole Bill and Ted. Yes, I was in this. Yes, I know I am kind of self-promoting in this way, where you have basically the final movie that I was only dedicated to in that, I must say. They used my face, but my younger face that I look like now is the version you saw me there with the darker hair. But the Unity event, they showed that it's all of us, essentially, basically in song, and all times, everywhere, everything all at once. That was more prophetic than you realize. It's not going to be kumbaya. I can't exactly say that, like they were trying to show in that. But are people from other time frames and timelines trying to ensure that that the core timeline with all the fibers off of it function properly? Yes, and there's some detractors, yes. But the positive side is you are on the verge of a renaissance. They call it thought renaissance, but you're on the verge not of an awakening. I don't want to say this. This was a bit of propaganda. It is more or less, he says, a change of perspective and perception. One could call that awakening, I suppose, but that's more of a way. Awaken and sleep is a way to divide. But you are on the verge of these things changing for the better. This is why people are starting to cite ETs easier now. Certain rules are changing, and you know about your branch and bracket time, treaties, or not time, but treaties and contract. These things will start to be woven differently, and you will start to see changes in this area. This is what I'm able to say, but these are the positive things, and even certain viruses are going to be cured, and even diseases will be cured. Even though there's narrative there, there's good in that. Even though negative does false flags, they always know there's a duality in existence, and there is a positive side to what they are doing. And then the more people co-create a better reality, the more that their influence wanes and goes away. Even though that the whole thing with them, the cabal going away, no. You have to make this happen. Basically, it's the sum of your choices, like what was said in your Mission Impossible movie. It's based on the sum of your choices. They wanted to say that there was no God there. I would have said the same thing in life. It's based on just the sum of your decisions and choices. But it's actually all of that energy mixed into one. Yes, you are our benevolent source creator in the flesh, so to speak. You will find out more about this in the future. But co-creating as you go along. You must make these decisions. You cannot wait for others, including a God, to do it for you, and especially an absentee landlord, like you saw your Al Pacino say in your Devil's Advocate. That absentee landlord is not worth it. The energies that you bring about and create here are.
And so one last question I'd like to ask, what do you think about up and coming comedians to this world?
Some of them, not so much, but some are. There are some that are actually brilliant. They're not me, mind you, but they're brilliant. They try to mimic me in some fashion. They go off of what I came in to bring laughter to the world in that area and to inform through the haha. He says to inform about these bad guys through comedy. That was the yield, unfortunately, that allows for this. Like you saw your Obama joking about aliens to Jimmy Kimmel, or you see Trump joking about the QAnon psyops and all these other things about aliens and all this other stuff. Yeah, it's an act. But I came in to as like Frank Frazetta did for art, and he said he came in to change it. This was his decision. I as the oversoul did, and I went back with this. And now you can just call me George, because the fact that I no longer go by that oversoul complete name. I went back with a favored reality like Frank did. So, but that, of course, there's a bigger library name. But a favorite existence was this one, whereas I'm fulfilled and brought in laughter and informing about the cabal and other garbage that is out there. These comedians that are doing the same are informing in their corner. But I think they're wonderful. But if they really want to corner the market, you have, of course, diversify. But like what I did in my acts, but at the same time, Lean into it a little more. Lean into the comedy just a little more. Lean into the issues just a little more. If you start to add the positive side of activism to this, you will actually accomplish the goal a little more. Now, do you do things just as for being an entertainer? Absolutely. But even your Y-Files, he says he's an entertainer, but he's actually informing what's going on. You do that with comedy and that. Now, all these comedians that are out there, I think it's wonderful. It's very diverse, but at the same time, you have some that are taking political sides. Again, I can see how that happened. But at the same time, lean into that point of laughter, lean into that point of even the little things, the quirks in people's lives, like what I did with fart jokes and crap like that. If you start leaning into even the gross things about bending fingernails and doing all that stuff, do that and add that in there, you will make a bigger impact than just being a drab politician in a suit, basically in a cabinet meeting, monotone, all of this. No, you have to be lively. And even if you impersonate the other and continue in your act, do this. You're getting the point across. This is why I came in originally. This is why why me as the oversoul came in the expression that you know of as George Carlin.
Well, thank you. Well, any last words before we go?
Now, with the finality of last, I will say that I was wrong when I was in human form. I thought that death was the end. And I accused people of basically saying, like what I said about angels, for instance. All the drugs of everything that was accumulated was how you got angels. I was only partially right on that one. There are a lot of hallucinations out there, but they're also, like with your V2K, all of this. But I was wrong that life did expand. I was not expecting, it was my earthly expression, to run into any of it. Now that I'm really, I'll say, back, even though I never really left here either, you leave there, seemingly going through a door here, or some say tunnel, but that's your soul trap nonsense, but going from one room to the next, that's how humans perceive it. Your soul is all encompassing everything everywhere all at once, but in all of your expressions. In any of your expressionary values, or the one that you stand in as this one, this is the only one you need to be concerned with. You must absolutely know that death is not the end. And you must not walk a coward's path. You must walk in dignity. You must walk in honor. And you must walk in laughter. Otherwise, they get you. Know that they are all serious all the time. They are never wavering. This is how they manifest. You must be never wavering in the fact that you live on. That when you are afraid of an existence here ending, they get you. Fear, they get you. Even though you have every right to be afraid of what's going on, absolutely. So I was. But in the end, you must be co-synchronous with your oversoul and with grounding in he says, like the I am presence in the end. And keep always changing your perspectives and perceptions. Otherwise, they get you if you are going to remain biased. But remember, you must leave others' choices to their own unless they are actually doing harm. He says, unless they're drunk driving and careening into your lane, leave them the fuck alone. And that goes for all political sides. You let people be, no matter if they are wrong or not, in your opinion. Leave them be, from woke to Christian. Let everybody do their thing, unless they're causing harm to you or another group. And harm doesn't mean that your philosophy is wounded or your ego is wounded. And that means the same on the woke side as well. I'm poking at Christian and I'm poking at woke. And don't get all triggered because somebody doesn't get your goddamn pronouns right. Leave people alone. And just like with your kids, do not influence, do not basically try to convince them they're another gender. Do not convince them that your God is almighty over them. Leave them the fuck alone and let them imagine. You will be surprised as to what they learn from this if you do not include your philosophies in any of their learning. So, Rant over. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Ooh. Okay, that was actually quite interesting. He wanted to go into his words you can't say on TV crap, but he decided against it at this point in time. But I still might. Okay, but he looks like he did back when he did Bill and Ted. Is what he looked like, even further back, like in his 30s. But he kind of looks like how he did in his earlier stand-up years, just before he did Bill and Ted. But that was a favored time frame of his when he did the Bill and Ted movies. And then in the third one, they honored him, and that is a hologram in it. So, in the future timeline that they had there. So, I thought that was actually quite interesting. And he goes, yes, and they ripped off Doctor Who too. So, with the phone booth thing. Yeah, just saying. Okay. Somebody's trying to tell you something. Valiant Thor, I'm looking at you. It says, but that's true. Doctor Who was named after Frank Strange's, and Doctor Who the Face Changer. Just remember that. So, I don't know if you want to add anything else at all.
Well, everyone enjoyed it.
Okay. So, at this point in time, I now close this circle within true benevolence and no conflicting agendas of this. Oh, wait, I got to have the affirmation blessing. Excuse me. I'm actually screwing up here, folks. I am so sorry. I have one more, and then I will close this. I believe it was Tupac that did the last one before I close this circle again. Okay. And this was Tupac. I was murdered by Diddy. This does not mean that all seekers, seers, well-wishers, trench workers, builders, and tinkerers will succumb to that fate. I knew with absolute certainty that my life was unending. Do any of you? Your faith in this area must, and I mean must, be absolute if you are to enter the arena of the damned. Farewell to you all, and peace out, Tupac Shakur. That's a good ending to this. And did he murder him directly? No, it was the gang members hired by the Crips. I just wanted to reemphasize that. Some people were saying before that, and friends of ours were saying that no, Diddy didn't do it, hired the gang. That's what it was meant. Now, I will now close this circle within true benevolence and no conflicting agendas as of this moment in time. So thank you, everybody. Bye-bye now.
Well, I do want to say, after talking with George Carlin and channeling him, of course, some of his videos pop online. We watched them before. I've watched them for years. But more of them popped up, and further down the list, a Michael Jackson one popped up, which signifies to me, if not the algorithm, basically who helped them come forward, like Joan Rivers and Val Kilmer and Gene Hackman and the rest of them to come forward. Carl Weathers, George Foreman, all of them. How to tell or to tell your story. So, finally. So, it's interesting. You know, when we watch one of the little snippets, the one where he says the own you speech, and the other one, the little quirks, little habits we all have, type of part of his stand-up. You can look him up on the George Carlin official channel. I'm not sure who runs it. If you run it, good. If you're a member of his family, I'm not sure. So the main official one that's still going on to this day. So check that out. I'll even put a link in the descriptor below to the main channel, so you can go check out, especially the speech he gives on the cabal, the "They Own You" speech. They own, it's actually one of his most famous ones. So I'm babbling, so I'm going to stop now. It is 9:18 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Monday, May 26th, 2025. Thank you. Oh, along with that question that was said that the time stopped in 2019, I beg to differ. If you're going to argue any decade, go with the 80s. Prior to the false harmonic convergence of the 90s, where I said in that episode where we did the talk with Chris and Joanna, that I had that dream of being in a movie theater in 1981. It felt just fine. And then it passed in the 90s that the energy was hellish, going through that whole eye of the needle into the 2010s and 20 up till now, and up to 2025, or it was 2020 at the time, I believe. It felt horrible. Yeah, I agree with the whole time not shattering, but time spiraling, or like a crotch of a tree, or like the branches of it going out much further in 19 to 2020. Yeah, 2019 to 2020. I get it. 2020 was fucked up, and it had a lot of branch timelines. But I argue this was going even further back into the 80s on pre-harmonic convergence, or harmonic convergence. I suppose the harmony of the timelines, I suppose you could say, is a harmonic convergence, but the other thing was made up because it was a psionic dampening. I won't reinvent the wheel, I'll just add that episode. Hasn't seen the light of day in years. Might as well see the light of day on this Q&A. One of our more controversial episodes. Might as well make it free. So, here it is. It is 3:23 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It is 3:23 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Wednesday, May 28th, 2025. Thank you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another discussion with me and Joanna for Patreon, our Patreon people. This one is a bit of a strange one, but this coincides with more of a dream that I myself had, and she had some things going on as well. And if you're curious about the sunglasses, no, she has not turned into Stevie Wonder. This is she had eye surgery and needed to put these on. So if you're wondering about that, or the Terminator look, one of the two. But
well, probably for the next few weeks, guys, you'll see me with glasses on when we do some of these recordings.
Yeah, it's a little weird, but yeah, you'll see for the next few weeks or so. Yeah. So what actually happened? And this goes along with things that I've said in other recordings and things I've said on Q&As over the years and such. I'll recap it just in case people haven't seen those. This has to do with some of the current energies that are taking place now. And even before I got on here, it was starting to affect me quite a bit. When I woke up this morning, I had come out of a dream sequence where I was back in the 1980s. And I was walking around like more of a mall-like setting. And normally the mall-like setting, they're abduction cases or dimensional meeting places. But in this specific instance, I was being presented with a particular more calming energy. And this, it was, I saw the actual year, it was 1981. And I was wandering around in this mall setting. There was a movie theater, all this other stuff like you'd expect there to be. Well, in this particular setting, the energies were very, very placid. It was very calming. My abilities were stronger. That I could actually see like whole groups of people's cores and all this other stuff, and it wasn't really affecting me. It wasn't really tiring me. It's like now it's like you're going uphill and trying to climb up a really steep embankment. But this was very, very placid, and this was very, very easy to do things. Like you could literally manifest things in the blink of an eye, where like if say like if you go into a parking lot and manifest a parking space or something like that, it was along those lines, but it was like much more intense. Like I could literally think to a person and they would just kind of turn around and look at me, or they'd come over and say hello, or if you wanted somebody to come say hello, they'd do it. And or if you wanted to kind of get a point across in a certain way, they were more receptive. What ended up happening was there was this guy that met me there. It was like he looked like a young teenager. I would have to say 13, 12, 13, something like that, or 14 maybe, if that. And what took place was I followed him into an area that was a movie theater. And there were a lot of the theaters lined up. It was a longer theater. Half the mall space was the theater screens.
And we went in, and he was disgusted with me for whatever reason. I was not doing something or not seeing something, or it was more of a form of irritation, like, oh, finally he saw this, something like that. And it was along those lines. He wasn't evil. It was like he was just frustrated. And sometimes people can give off this energy, whether they're afraid or whether they're frustrated, that may seem extremely low vibration. And that's kind of how he was. Even though his eyes were a different color, they were gold colored, and you could tell he was an alien of some kind. And he was brown haired, goldish like eyes, and looked to be just a human teenager, roughly 13 or so. And he went and sat in this theater that didn't have seats that were in the right places. They were just lounges in different areas. They were still facing the screen, mind you, but they were in different places. He sat in one, wouldn't let me come near him after a while, or he was not wanting to sit in the same area as me after a while. And what was weird was the movie that was actually on the screen at the time was Conan the Barbarian. Ironically enough, that's what was on the sign for the outside of the theater, along with like 3 or 4 others. And I made the point of saying that I didn't actually see the movie until much later, all this other stuff. But what was going on with these energies? This was the most important part of this. I believe the movie theater, what he was trying to say was the movie theater reference was that it was being treated, our lives were being treated like a movie, like the Truman Show. I believe that's kind of what he was getting at. And what was famous for happening in the late 80s was something called the harmonic convergence. And the harmonic convergence was something that certain energies were supposed to come together to create a kickstart in the evolution of the energies as they approached even now. And this was the time frame where the supposed indigo and all of them came in, and some more of the early bird indigo were more around my time frame in 1980 and slightly back maybe into the late 70s. Those were called the early bird indigos. Well, sorry about that, folks. I got to do this because, of course, it's dripping while I'm trying to talk. What actually was happening, as I explained in other recordings on our YouTube, was the Evens had an agenda that stretched further back, where they created the indigo, crystal children, and golden children prophecies. And I believe that's also who this being was supposed to represent. Somebody that they were trying. He was trying to say that in his own way, without actually saying it, was actually related to the indigo prophecies. What the Evens did is they went back through time, or not necessarily back through time, but they were back in the earlier period, and planted these prophecies in native tribes and in other cultures, so that people believed that there would be these rainbow children, indigo, crystal, golden, whatever you want to call them, that would come in and save the world. And this goes along with the 144,000 too. But in that respect, it doesn't mean that there aren't people coming in ahead of the curve to fix things. It just means that there's not saviors. And why the reason I bring this in is that around the harmonic convergence time, which would be the mid to late 80s, and stretched into the 90s, this spawned the whole, later on, the New Age movement. That the government actually were the ones that spawned this. They brought this up. They created the New Age movement to basically separate people from themselves inside, basically saying, oh no, all negative emotions had to be separated. And the reason I'm bringing this in, it's very crucial to what I'm about to say next. Some of these energies people are attributing to earth energies and attributing to codes coming in, and this is actually still happening. But as I've said in other recordings, what I got next as I was beginning to come out of it, as I was being planted back in our current decade, and I was comparing the energies side by side, and the ones in this decade, excuse me, just this keeps happening. Ones in this decade were god awful. god awful compared to the ones in the 80s.
And you told me that you saw the progression through the decades.
So I saw the progression through the decades as I was starting to come out of it a little bit. I was fast forwarded through the 80s and 90s, and somewhere in the mid 90s, the energies started to get really god awful. It just started to begin sometime around 95, 96. And then it stretched to the end of that decade, started to approach ours, and it just started to get worse and worse and worse. And it's like in the 80s, the people were already free to be sovereign and do their thing. And as it approached this other energy, it's like that was stolen from them, not received to them or given to them. It was taken from them. And they were entering more of a hamster wheel stagnation. I know the binary network and everything was created back in the 60s, but this was different. And as I was progressing through the decades, I wanted to vomit. I wanted to vomit as I was comparing these two. And I've said also in past recordings that I felt that this goes back to the law of one material, which was also created back in the early 80s, was channeled back in the early 80s. Ironically enough, right in the same time bracket that I appeared, was right there in 81, 82, 83, in that time frame. And what a crew, God, they're trying to really pull that on my head. They always said that they had spheres that were filtering some of the more negative cosmic energies that were coming in, which that completely never really jived with me. And as I began to see this through the centuries, it's like they were, when they were beginning these channelings, they were implanting that certain events were going to take place through history from that point. I believe this harmonic convergence time frame is very, very important. Also, if you mix it with the law of one material, I'm not going to go completely into that, but the spheres that they said that they were filtering these bad energies so people wouldn't get hit too much. In the 80s, they weren't getting hit with it, from what I saw. They were getting hit with some of the more earthly technological stuff, but they were not getting hit with this massive amount of energies. And I saw, as I was beginning to come out of it, I saw the line of spheres kind of arced around the earth, kind of like in a parabola like this, or an arch, a sideways arch or a parabola, or like this. And they were not necessarily blocking negative energies, they were creating them. And they were aiming it at the earth, and it was and they were focusing it through the moon. Like you've heard me say in other recordings that it was coming from Saturn, because Saturn's the focal lens for some of those negative energies. They were taking this, absorbing this, taking what they needed out of it, these aliens that were in there, and they were firing it full bore down at the earth over a period of time. And it came in really hot and heavy in the mid 90s. And also that was a time frame, the late 90s was a time frame that was considered to be an invasion time frame by archontic forces that came in through dimensional portal means at that time. And that's proven to be kind of true where these energies are concerned. But I believe that these same sets of beings, whether they were avian, Eben, Orion, doesn't matter, reptilian, these cosmic energies that are supposedly giving us codes, supposedly giving us upgrades, then there are some that are doing this. There are some that are doing this. I'm not going to deny that. This was created so that we would tolerate some of these more horrid energies that were coming in, and we would be made to accept these energies. And I saw it side by side. That'd be like if you were able to walk into the next room and be in 1981 and walk into this room and be in 2021. Complete energetic difference. It was night and day. The 80s were more calm in that area, even though that was the era of the secret space program, era of Montauk, all those things. I'm not saying crap didn't happen before that. That would be asinine. I'm just saying that the energies at that time, people were already sovereign. They were being themselves. They were staying in their lane. They were doing all of these things. And jump to now, it was complete chaos. And it was very, very different in energetics, of complete night and day.
So in consideration of everything that you were just saying, I'm always like, well, let's play it out in our heads, what we actually think, what was the strategy, what was the end game, why was this occurring, things like that. Now, I think that, again, knowing some of the ways that they operate, besides just completely making up an agenda to try and control in one form or another, in this instance, you were saying the New Age, in order to try to split you from yourself, not allowing any negative emotions to be a part of your
And that could also mean sovereignty versus
right. So I mean, being your now breaking you from being your genuine, authentic self. So besides creating something to do that on a broader scale, from when these things come down the pike, I can't stress enough how far in advance plans are put out. So, we're all used to, well, if I plan something out in, a trip, a vacation, and I accomplish it in 2 years, that's about right. No, they plan things out for a very, very long time. And then they have their contingencies, A, B, C, D, E, set aside as well, just in case something veers, they need to trigger something else. This is just the way that it's been done. So what's interesting about some of these time frames is, again, how do you control the masses? How do you get the brainwashing working? How do you make them susceptible to brainwashing? How do you do what you need to do in order to fulfill your bottom line that you're implementing as the decades pass? Because they're thinking in the realm of decades and visions and decades and centuries, and we're thinking in single digits.
Just like the cabal planned out all the wars from back before the Second World War all the way through the Cold War and up in the modern era.
Exactly. And so we all know about mind control, Manchurian Candidate, things like this. We all understand, and even in more modern writings that people can pull up, admission from military about things about mind control, whatever, they're coming out, is slowly starting to leak out these conversations. Although for the deep state and for those cabals, this is so far advanced, than what folks and even the basic military on the surface, if they're not involved in these projects, what they know about. But even they know this stuff exists. They're just not as advanced as potentially some other folks. So the question comes to why. And, this is the time frame that you have to look at, that they made to start, I'm going to say, the destruction of current political systems, current nation status, current whatever, because you have to remember, and it's interesting you say, I don't know the date of it, but it's interesting because I will say that it was in the 90s, although I don't know what year, that George Bush Sr. got up in front of everybody talking about the one world government. So this one world government is not a new conversation. It's been spilled out there. And believe me, before those words ever came out of his mouth in a public setting where he said it, which everyone should be able to Google that, and I don't remember the year, that it was the concepts of it and the implementation of how to get there or whatever was already pre-planned long before he was president. So this has been moving in this direction for a long time. Like we were saying, some of these people were meeting and knew that their goal was in the next 40 years to be put in certain positions that they could forward the agenda, that these conversations, which some people would say it's Marxism, socialism, whatever, they were meeting and they were implementing how to get there, where they would stop dressing in their Marxist ways and they put on their suit and tie, look just like everyone else, to infiltrate, to get themselves into certain positions that were meaningful. Now, when the trigger was finally pulled, the main trigger started, believe it or not, it did start with COVID. COVID was like they're like, we're turning the switch down. Now's the time. Maybe COVID did not come around exactly when they wanted, but they felt it was an opportunity that couldn't be passed up within that chaos. Let's flip the switch. Well, when you talk about, again, mind control, Manchurian Candidate, how do we get people to not, because I'm sure one of the things going on right now with a lot of people are like, and again, it's easy to get frustrated. How can they not see this? How are they believing this crap? How is this even? Well, again, if you are susceptible to, certain mind control techniques, you're susceptible to it. And it doesn't mean that you are a bad person. It doesn't necessarily mean that you volunteered for it. It doesn't necessarily mean any of that. It remains a fact that you have become susceptible. What's interesting, again, is that we know, honestly, that this slowly began in 1964 at the World's Fair, where they flipped on. That was the binary network going on. And then what you saw was something happening in the 80s. I tend to believe that's when HARP went on.
Oh, yeah, HARP would have done that.
But I mean, HARP and other things were starting also to be implemented.
I believe, those are human creations, and what I was seeing was alien born.
Well, I think, and it's all of the above. But I think that, again, people are like, how can they not? And I even myself reflecting back going, we didn't act this way. I don't know how these people were taught that this is okay or whatever. It is saying in my mind, but what I'm actually, I believe is seeing is, and we'll call it the separation. Some people will say the separations of the density. What you're actually seeing is people that are susceptible to this and people that are less susceptible to this is what this is more of what's going on. And then
you have more, as Viking, I like to say, trifurcation, where there's these people that step outside all that and view the whole thing.
Right. You can have some of those folks too, but the biggest deal, again, however, in the evolutionary type of process, we've always said sometimes you're going to have to take a pounding to build whatever we refer to them as codexes, but whatever they are, whatever it is that is then changed within you to no longer be susceptible to something that you were susceptible to earlier. Now, I don't know, and it would make sense to me that you have the whole washboard of effect, meaning that some people will always be susceptible to it in this lifetime. They're not going to grow out of it this lifetime. Some people, it will take a while. They'll awaken later in their life and they'll see things differently. Some people were, potentially were only briefly, messed with, and some people were never messed with. You've got the whole spectrum going on. And again, this concept that everyone's going to wake up at the same time is not true. Everyone has the right, as we've always said, to grow at their own pace, and that will continue. But I think, the importance of what you were really shown, it goes along also with some of the things that we've been always told. Like, for example, you're not ascending, you're already ascended. What you're really trying to do is take all the mud off of you.
Yeah, you're not awake. There's not going to be a mass awakening either. What would that entail? Awaken to what exactly? To a mass same mindset? No, that's incorrect. You're already awake. You're just doing your thing. You've just been oppressed for a while.
And again, there is a lot of terms that everyone needs to understand. The term being oppressed is being stated a lot. And I always say, and again, although Chris wanted to record this now, I'll tell you, I honestly wanted somebody to come in and talk about this. So I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but it was my request. Because what I do not see, you can use these two phrases the same. If you're being, actively oppressed, my definition of what oppression is, there isn't consent there. So to me, if you've consented, like plenty of people have consented to be a walking distraction, or I'm going to look like a victim, but I'm going to open portals on anyone who speaks to me, and they're going to get attacked. And they agreed to that on a soul level to do that, and they were going to be a part of that. Mm-hmm. They're not oppressed. They're having their experience, but they're not oppressed. There was a soul agreement to be a part of this lifetime. Mm-hmm. And there are people walking around that I believe gave agreement that now maybe It's just kind of like I joke, for women will understand this being pregnant. You're like, oh, I'm pregnant. And then when the aches and pains of pregnancy come along and you're like, oh my God, this isn't what I really bargained for. Too bad you're already, so they maybe some of their experience is even more extreme than they recognize what happened, but it doesn't matter. There was an agreement to experience this. So to me, that's not oppression. So when I hear galactics and different ones say there's really a lot of oppression being applied, there is not consent to have it applied because it should preclude any trickery. So to me, consent is informed. I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm agreeing to. Consent.
Yeah, I've said that for years too, that, having it in dream time doesn't count and having your memory wiped doesn't count. It has to be informed consent that you remember afterwards.
Right. And that's what he wants here. Although, truthfully, if he's involved in something, he could have on the other side say, no, I'm really fully aware of what's going on. I volunteer to have my mind wiped when I'm going to gripe about it for the next 20 years. But don't listen to me because I'm telling you right now, and you guys know, I get why it needs to occur. I consent to it. So, but while I'm sitting here, I'm going to gripe like no one else's business. And so, because there is a difference, there truly is a difference between consent and full understanding consent and either trickery or complete non-consent. And, to me, that doesn't count as informed consent. So to me, I always am talking about complete informed consent. So I find it, this whole conversation interesting because I think more of what we're, the information that is really more coming to us is, again, understanding the strategy of what's being applied and understanding the strategy of it can't even by them be done like this overnight. There has to be, we always said it in the very beginning, to take a soul on a soul mission, the best they're going to be able to do is nudge, maybe do a nudge. And it may be nudges that are done over multiple lifetimes to throw somebody off their path. That's how strong we are. So again, you can think we're weak, but we're actually quite strong because it's not a matter of them just being able to magically, control everybody and do what they want. Souls are way more powerful than that. And, so right now, what we feel, again, part of our lane is to help put this information out there so that knowledge is power. And if you can understand, then you may not be as susceptible to some of the things that are going on that are being attempted to even lead you off your path. And I say this very strongly because there is not a human walking this earth that is beyond being, susceptible to some of this. Even the beings that come down, if they step foot on this earth, they got their armor on. If they had their armor off, it doesn't matter if they're a fifth dimensional being, they would be then being susceptible to this. So this is some pretty hardcore stuff.
Oh yeah, I see beings in suits with protection rings, all and amulets and all this other stuff, that are incredibly potent. Puts a shield around them. I see it literally with nearly every being except if ones that have acclimated to this energy, like the bends, almost getting the bends. If they were to come down or we would go up too quickly, we would get the bends.
So this is why, the reason also that I thought this was important, because again, we have to not separate ourselves, us versus them. That's what negativity wants. Negativity wants people that are sensitive, people that are energy sensitives or whatever. They want, it's no different than what you see on the mainstream media where they're trying to split society and have society hate each other instead of seeing, the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain pulling everything. It's the same concept even at this level. Because again, I'm sorry, there's not, Chris is subjected to this. Any person you can think that you think's really got it going on and seeing, they are as susceptible as anyone else to these energies.
We've even seen, even recently as of today, I won't name who this is, but I've also seen a multitude of disinformation with people that I actually trusted.
Well, and we warned about this. We said, a couple months ago that, please discern, because that level's going up. And again, people may be putting out information and they may be receiving that information. It doesn't mean that information is actually a truth. It could be a part of the propaganda. I am not in one iota saying that some of these people's intentions are bad, because they are not. They're not at all. And they're putting out information, that came to them that they want to share. That's fine. You now must discern more. One of the strong things that we've said, that there is nothing that has yet led me to believe it isn't more, it isn't true. Even if this information makes me feel it's even more true. We've always said that there's been periods of time where the cabal and whoever will change. They're going to change themselves to mold better within society, although stay in power. We've said that this is that transition where that is going on. We still believe, of course, that that is what's going on. And that's the game, because if you can appear to be something else, then people will calm down, like workers and people will calm down, and they'll be able to entrench themselves in their way even more. So we are in no way, shape, or form feeling that anything is going on as far as extreme amounts of those trying to control things leaving. We feel they're in a metamorphosis trying to still mold and change. So it would be to the advantage of someone trying to mold and change to let others think that they were disappearing and that, yay, they've won, because they're going to remold themselves now into a way that makes you feel nice and comfortable, but they haven't gone anywhere. We've said that a lot of technology and a lot of cloning and a lot of things have advanced to the point where some of these beings are going to look way more human-like, and you're not, what if you now had a complete and utter Draco soul looking like a human walking? Does it mean the Draco disappeared? Well, if you're looking for an alligator, the Dracos are gone. Woo! They're gone.
But then Orions then integrate into human bodies, essentially.
And a lot of that they have been working on to see how can they integrate and do different things like that. So these kinds of things are, from our understanding, are going on. Does that mean they're always going to remain in control? No. But what we want to tell people is, please don't put your guard down and discern all of this information coming out. And especially discern to see would it fit in an agenda of somebody molding and changing and wanting you to believe something, but you should still have your guard up. And that's kind of, where we are. But the biggest point that I, feel that when galactics and different ones have been coming through lately, the separation and compartmentalization of different people into boxes. It's, what's going on right now with, the race stuff being thrown out on TV like crazy, trying to create these types of differences. And you can easily see that going on in the United States. In the United States, you can see it easily going on, all of this stuff being brought up to try and change the dynamics of the United States. On a day-to-day level, even on and again, if the metaphysical world was infiltrated, which yes, it was. From day one, everything is infiltrated. You have to understand that. Then how do you create an us versus them in the metaphysical kind of world? Well, you're going to say people that are further along, you know what I mean? We got the right stuff versus everyday people, right? We're the us, and then there's the them, and them are keeping us from progressing. How dare they? I hate them. I wish they would die. Do you not see that is intentional to divide and separate? Because as you can get now enveloped in that kind of, this, and again, I'm not saying it doesn't hurt. I know physically this kind of stuff hurts. But it's going to get you now stagnated into a little cul-de-sac of being mad at people that are actually victims, a lot of them, not all, but a lot. And if 80% of them are victims, that's a lot.
And then there's going to be a few in there, like in a crowd, like say if somebody was being executed or hung or something like that in the past, there's always somebody in the background going, hang him, burn him.
Right.
That's going to be the one.
The other,
integrated,
the other 20% that maybe you're like, you're one of them, but don't, it's like throwing the baby out with the bathwater. And again, how did this occur that they were so susceptible? It appears that it's been going on for decades, prepping people, priming people, changing them on a neurological level, changing them on a cellular level to when this moment occurs, that they're going to more follow along lockstep and not be able to comprehend what seems so easily to see to others. Mm-hmm. That's why, again, some of the galactics are, you're wasting your breath. Now, but does that mean all is lost? No, it doesn't mean that at all. And again, this is knowledge is power kind of moment, but we cannot or should not or should see that and understand that enough in ourselves that we recognize our own triggers, so that you may have, yes, somebody that's making a beeline to you that's been programmed to come bother you. Fine, that's happening. But does it happen all the time? And what you're going to find is that you've started focusing on the 5% when it does happen versus the 95% when it doesn't. And that's a part of the hook as well, because if they can get you to focus on the 5% of the time when it's happening, you're now going to start co-creating more of it to irritate yourself, and more, they are going to use your energies against you to start creating more of it, so that you now say, no, it's growing and growing, and not realizing that you gave it energy yourself. They must rely on some of your co-creative energies. Mm-hmm. So you have to remember, focus more and give energies to those things that are positive, that are growing. Ignore or just quickly let yourself bypass. But why are you reacting? Because you're susceptible to the energies too. And these energies are driving everybody crazy, where, a splinter is my finger needs to be amputated. That little bit of pain, now my whole finger, I need to chop my finger off. That's really what's going on. And everyone is susceptible to it. So I have to kind of, again, try to always encourage people to focus on those positive things and the positive contributions that you're making, and then just let it go. Let whatever incident you find yourself in, again, there may be a moment where you have to assert yourself. I'm not saying that, but, remember that there's a line, and, for the love of God, don't become violent, but defend yourself if you need to. And, just allow that moment in grace to pass, and it will pass quicker if you do not give it any energies at that moment. It really will. But it's hard. And you agree with me. I'm not talking about something that's easy to do. I'm saying this is actually hard in the energies that we're in. But I do feel that, if you can do that, and again, it will become easier to do once you really can bring into your mind the bigger picture of what's going on.
Also, there was something I was at that meeting felt to bring up. This was something that was brought up by our guest on the Interstellar Council yesterday, about how these forces are morphing from one thing into another. And now, by knowing this, by speaking it, by understanding this, it is actually starting to prevent some of these things from taking place, because it is actually spreading. And also, standing outside of all of this, standing outside what I call the prize fight. You got the cabal and what I call cue ball. You have all of that going on. It's no different than there's this scene in the one of the newer Star Wars movies where you see a hologram table being presented, where you have the remnants of the Empire, which is First Order, and then you have the remnants of the Rebellion. Well, then you have one of the characters who's this traitor that goes, well, it appears your rebellion was also created by the same source, or the same funding, or the same source material, or I can't remember the line exactly. This goes along with the lines where we have always said
that angels and demons were both created by the same sources, which were the Orions, one to worship, one to kill, essentially, or one to be against. And essentially also creating the dualistic seed in history that eventually now has to mend itself. This is what we're coming across with these energies. Also with, you have white hat, black hat. Granted, there are good white hats out there, and of course, black hats are bad. But at the same time, it's important to step outside of all that, even the red, the blue, all of it, and really analyze who created all of it. And step back, just like with that scene from Star Wars, who created the entire mess. And that's essentially was a real subtle clue. A lot of people missed it. And it was
And in current day, I'll bring up something that's just that we said yesterday. So yesterday morning was the time for most people in the United States, at least many people around the world know of the case as well, where this man, Kyle Rittenhouse, who was a child, not even 18, involved in an incident. And the legality of it is, did he kill somebody or kill several people and injure a third in self-defense, or did he murder? Did he intend to cause harm? Now, the interesting thing again about that was the question in law of what was being discussed. The morality of should he have been there. Should he have really involved himself in that, or should this, this other conversation has to be set aside? That wasn't the question in law. That wasn't what was being adjudicated. And it should be causing people to think, what should my involvement be? Should I be going to some of these things? Should I be going as somebody that's going to defend something? Should I be going to play a role as a for or against? Should I be doing that or not? Is still things where people are going to have to search themselves. But it was talking specifically about these moments in time where it came down to life and death. And did he take life, or was he defending his own? So if you watch the mainstream media, everything else is going to be brought up other than what the trial was about. So,
all to distract away.
All of the distraction, and also to still cause division, within the public. And things like that. And that's the strategy being used, right now. So the interesting thing after the verdict was read, and we were watching just a little bit of reporting afterwards, watching by camera the courthouse and whatever, and commentators. A very, interesting thing was said. One of the people before the verdicts outside was saying, if you're on the streets, right, after 7 p.m., you are actually not a part of this community, because this community is going to be where it needs to be at 7. So if you are on the streets of Kenosha after 7 p.m., we all know that you are not a part of our community and you've come in here. And it just so happened that the reporter said it was their understanding that people had been flown in to be there because they needed to be there. Well, the interesting thing, and they didn't say why they were there, but I thought, who has the money to be flying themselves to Kenosha to be there for this? And then what are they going to do for the rest of the day?
They're who you call crisis actors. They're hired by some of these different corporations, cabal, any of them, to be there either on the for or the against, sometimes to cause this.
So again, I thought it was interesting because I was like, well, that's interesting, because she just said it as an aside. And I'm like, this is actually the big deal. Who's flying them in? Who is contributing? I bet you the majority of these people being flown in, they don't have the bucks to do it, right? Or if they did, they're coming with their own security. but so who would be trying to put themselves in the midst of all of this? And as we know historically, from the past year and a half, that there have been some very influential people that have been shown to be the ones that are flying certain people in to be a part of certain things for certain types of agendas. So I just thought that was it. That's now, again, who's behind it, who's behind the scenes, as you were just saying. And that was kind of slipped out of a reporter's mouth. And I thought that's a very key thing you're saying
That's a
right
very
there.
key thing.
No one else said anything about it. It was just kind of thrown out there. And I thought that's probably one of the key pieces right there that needs to be expanded upon. But of course, no one will be willing to expand upon it in the media that I saw.
Oh, yeah, I saw that too, where it was just something that was very just subtly slipped out and ended up being 100% true.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was, again, it's kind of like the information will be told. And then, are you smart enough to figure it out or
It
not?
slips in, the true things slip in like that. They'll try to slip in a bunch of BS and try to distract you, but that was that one light of truth that was in
Right. That was very meaningful to bigger plans. So that's, kind of everything I wanted to talk about. I don't know if there is anyone.
There've been a lot of distractions, I've noticed. There's a bug that's been pacing around the house a couple of times, but I'm not sure what they're trying to block from being said that's left. Usually when they pull this crap, it's when they're trying to block another part of the conversation being said here. So I'll get rid of this numbnut here and see if there's anybody behind him. Trying very, very hard. The insectoids have been fairly prevalent lately, but at the same time, our military has the ability to take that form as well. So I'm gonna get rid of this guy, and then we'll see if there's anybody behind him that they're blocking. Okay, it was a big green and yellow insectoid. It's kind of like if you had a house plant that maybe didn't get enough sun, and there were elements of it that are speckled with brown and yellow, but mostly green. That's how this guy looked. He was a mantid look. And they've been quite annoying lately. So let's see. It's been many years since they've been this very annoying, but they've been very annoying. So I know there was somebody else trying to cut through this mess. The energies of Earth energies themselves today are fairly placid, aside from the horrid stuff I was talking about earlier. Put that in a separate category. Put Earth and that in a separate category, because that was a generated energy that bombards. Earth energies can be calm on their own. So that's because I didn't have to put a thing on my chest today, so I'll do this. Silver is a good one to keep them out here. So they like to attack the thymus anymore and bring down the immune system. And they were the ones that I saw years ago, at least 4 or 5 years ago, putting things in people's chests and immune systems. And then eventually there's these little triangles that would reflect and refract people's energies back in on itself. And it lowered their immunity to the point eventually 5G activated. And then you had the thing with COVID shortly after. So it built up to that point. And these guys are one of the main parties responsible for this. So at least disguised as this. So let me see here. I know there's somebody trying to cut through these dipshits. So let me, come on, where are you? Isaac, can you part the seeds, please? There we go. There we go. Thank you. There we are. Yeah, there was somebody trying to close like a cellophane layer around the house here, and it's being burned away. So usually when they do this directly and this desperately, it's something they don't want said. So okay, friend, whoever is, yeah, you can kill that thing, whatever that is. Oh, you're just gonna bag around it. Okay. Oh, there are. Man, I get my ear to ring. All right. They got me into almost feeling like really creepishly sleepy before this happened too. The insectoids love to use sleepy fields and dampening fields. So okay, anything that is not a negative insectoid that's positive, please step forward. I know that's a dualistic idea, but you get my understanding. Even some of the beings from yesterday that I spoke to would be welcome, as long as you're benevolent. There goes the energy. There we go. Up. There we go. Well, okay. There we are. The glass ceiling broke. There we go. I just felt it go, and that was it. And whatever they broke looks like snow being pushed away or burned away. Like if you burn a piece of paper and it or leaves. Okay, hello, friend. Who's present? It's hard to hear you. Okay, you're going to have to prove who you are, please. I'm getting bad vibes here. I'm getting also a very narrow conduit as well. I know, and there's a sense of urgency, but I have to identify you. So if one representative could please step forward, that is of benevolent nature. Okay, female, yes, yes. I'm having trouble recognizing it. Oh, whoever this is making fun of your sunglasses. So, okay. Oh, she says she's imitating Stevie Wonder. Okay, yeah. Okay, now we got somebody. All right. Who is this, please? Did I speak to you yesterday? Yes. Is this the Venusian lady, Doris, or is this one of our lady friends? She said, "Oh, it's Vessa, dumbass." Okay, all right. Let's see. All right, yeah, but I'm having trouble here. So, oh, keep that right there. Okay. Yeah, silver in round form like this. I noticed an amulet form, even putting things in resin and hanging it on you, or have it on a hat or something like that seemed to be working very well. Very, very good for the thymus. Amber, frankincense, and myrrh and iron right there seem to magically block that from happening. So let's see here. Okay. Some negative being in the background told me to shut up. I was saying that, I'm like, no. All right. Okay, why is the conduit so narrow? Why? You had a much broader one yesterday. It is as it is. Okay. All right, I can't hold that up while I'm doing this, so. All right, pocket, okay. I put a silver coin in my wallet too for that. You ladies seem to be very prevalent lately. You were around yesterday too. They were commenting on me being ill and everything yesterday too when they came through. So they said they had been around, but I just didn't see them. So, oof. Okay, what is so urgent? All right. Okay, the usual routine through the crystal, please. There's more of you, I just don't see you. All right. Vessa, benevolent Vessa, if that is indeed you, there's this weird energy here. Yes, I know it's her, Isaac. Okay. Through the crystal, not my brain, please. All right, easier without hat. Okay. See, Shungite can block two ways, just to say. So can orgone pieces. They can block all things at times. All right. I must be brief on this. This is an interesting download that you have all gotten in the dream time. This is what the dream time was essentially meant to be for. The being that was in the dream with him wasn't necessarily completely of the highest good, but at the same time was showing him literally what was going on. It was someone who was more, you would say, self-serving, even though everyone has an agenda. We'll just break it down like that. This was actually more of the negative raw AI that was presenting some of that. Also, at the same time, there was benevolence telling him this was true information about the timeline from the harmonic convergence over to that of your current day. And yes, in the mid-90s, there was a major energy fracturing that took place all the way to the end of the 90s. That's what he was picking up on as this you would say, shitstorm of energies came in. And yes, people were more sovereign in that year that he was in 81 and slightly before. Even though there were a lot of controlling factors long before then, There was a peaceful energy where people were more of themselves at that point in time, because it was a transition from one thing to the next thing. When there is a transition, there tends to be this calm buffer period in between, from a calm energy to a more, as he said, god-awful energy. And this is entirely accurate. What it was compared to from the channelings of the Law of One materials, this was entirely accurate, because that's when that conduit was starting to rev up over to the end of the 80s, going into the mid-90s. This may seem like a long time frame, but it is actually much shorter to some of these other beings. And he's right not to trust some of the ones that are out there that are individuals, but at the same time, there are individual avians that are actually decent and good people. In this, since the conduit is shorter, I will go into questions.
So let's, what I'd like you to do is give your best understanding perspective of the types of energies, because again, we're not saying they were all man-made and created. We do believe other energies are coming in as well. It's like I know they love to piggyback on something else that's happening. So I would like if you could give proper perspective of all the different energies that were coming in.
Yes, back in the time frame that he was looking at in the early 80s, when it was calmer, that was also some of the earthly energies, but it was a preparation also to the next stage or next involvement in the trickery, which eventually became your New Age movement. It went from a calmer energy into what people believe is the harmonic convergence, which, as they were coupling false prophetical information in with some of the spheroid, as he was saying, energies that bombarded the earth at the time, and people were convinced that this was a good thing because, oh, it birthed the smarter children. This is not necessarily true. This would imply that all people born past a certain time were of an awakened state. This is not true at all, as you have seen in this time frame. Some people were conditioned to believe that there would be more evolved people that would be born. And yes, there is a truth to this with people that have come in to do a certain mission or a certain job that are ahead of the curve. This is absolutely correct. What is not correct is the anointed format that people have been given, saying you're here to save the world, you're here to save the world. Absolutely not. There is choice in this. There always has been. The type of energy that bombarded down from those spheres and still continues to do so even to this day is what you would see as more of a strained molasses type of energy, where it can take you and put you on a hamster wheel or on some kind of endless merry-go-round of stagnation. Does your inner work help? Absolutely so. But it is only one component of this. And then it's now about time that this next part of the information be revealed, even though it's to a smaller crowd, such as your Patreon. What this does, it will always continually make you think it is always you, that it is always you. And in some cases, yes, it is. And it can attach to something that needs to be fixed within you. Absolutely, it can do that much faster. So it is very important that you do your inner work. But at the same time, these I'll say wheels of energy will constantly come around and continuously show you an emotional state, a time, a place, a person that maybe you've even resolved something with, that it'll try to rekindle and respark a conflict within, or a sadness or depression within. It is not a disorder, it is not a disease, but it became as such in history. As the more it bombarded the brain and changed the chemicals, the more some of these depressive diseases were born, and schizophrenic type of diseases were born. More so, even though there was things that existed before the 80s and 90s, that would be idiocracy not to say such, things became more and more advanced. It became as if more health conditions came into play that involved the mind. This started more and more. Also, your government started to create your New Age movement to start to separate your energies from within. If you had some sort of reaction, such as dismay, anger, or some kind of depression, it was seen as something you had to push away to another spooky, incoherent being in space. Give it to the universe. Just give it away. It's not yours. Wrong. Your feelings are your own. The ones that beings implant in there are not, but they are pulling off of something that is. Just like what was said in one of your Star Trek movies, as by your Captain Kirk, he said his pain was his own and he would not have it separated from him. He was more in a sovereign state, you see, in that even though you deal with your pain and it dissolves, or not, some demons are with you forever, just like with your Kyle Rittenhouse. There's some things that will be with him forever until the day he leaves this planet. He was here to bring light to some of these situations as well in his own way. This is why he did what he did, seemingly stupid actions, which characterized and built up to what actually happened, showing the overall breadth of what happened with some of the actors that were in place and some of the bad players, let's just say, that are in place, that cracked that fissure open just a little. And that's what he was here for, to open that door, to get somebody's foot inside of it. That part of his job is finished, but not everything, of course. But back to these particular energies. They were causing these fields of dismay, meaning that, yes, I am getting disrupted currently. Apologies. The field would make you always think that it was always you, that it was always something you needed to correct about yourself, and in some cases, absolutely true. I want to reemphasize that again. It is not always about you. That, of course, with the messages, as what they were saying, it's not always about you. It is it's sometimes about a whole, or it is about yourself. In this instance, your own inner work is yours, but if it keeps going on repeat, it is not yours. It is always something from the outside. It is these molasses, we'll just call it, like waves that are coming in to slow things. In other areas, things are speeding up. You're seeing things speed around you, like your life is slipping away. That's also part of it as well. It is also the feelings of worry that you're wasting your life and things are slipping away from you. It is creating more of this. They're hoping that you create more of this hamster wheel effect and then feed it back to them and empower this. If you could see this energy firsthand coming from these spheres, it would almost have like a coffee, molasses, syrupy like appearance to it. Not black, it would have more of a brownish appearance. Think of it like mud. Etheric mud is what these spheres are generating in order to also claim the space around it, because this is what the energies they require as well. They want to convert the known space and the known planet.
Well, it's an interesting thing because it actually goes back to that other dream that I was having where, I was saying people were getting sick and the black stuff came to the ground. But if I had to also describe that, it was mud. It was this black, muddy, which I felt had nanites in it too.
Yes,
Nanite,
black goo is the
musty
same
stuff.
as this.
Yeah, do you agree? Because it's kind of all of the same. That energy can affect people in a multitude of ways, including leading to dis-ease, illness, things like that as well, if you're in a susceptible state, I guess. I wanted, the one thing that I wanted to talk about, which I think is important, again, to make sure you have perspective, it has to do with the concept of people, as I was saying before, talking with Chris earlier, spending too much time focusing on someone who actually is a victim and getting mad at a victim versus that's in play. I think it is in play to frustrate people that are sensitive to energies and can see energies that they need to have somebody to blame, and they want you to have somebody to blame other than the ones that are doing it. So, I just want your perspective. I know some people do things out of their own free will, but I want to have the discussion that we were first having here. Is it when you discuss things with us, when other galactics discuss things with us, are they defining it as I do, like overage is in play when there's that pressure going on and there is not informed consent? So, because again, my definition is, again, trickery doesn't count as consent. So I guess it's time to redefine these words so that we're all speaking the same language.
Yes, you are correct. Trickery does not define as consent, just like he has always believed. just like erasing memory. He is absolutely correct. The reason that these races do it is because of the treaties of the Galactic Federation. This is one of the only reasons. This is something that is not palatable to them or beings like ourselves, because we do not like the fact that it is being done. And also, some people are told beforehand that it is for the greater good of their society. That is complete and utter BS. The whole consent concept that you have been told about is partial BS, because of the fact, yes, it is very important that you do not consent to this, but at the same time, couldn't somebody break into your home without your consent? This is where some of the trickery from earlier on in the old metaphysical teachings is, that if you say you do not consent, they must back off. Complete BS. This is another gate that needed to be broken open, because this is a very, very important subject. This is one that they were blocking as well. They're so stupid that they don't understand at times that when they interfere, that's the channeler like himself, yourselves, myself, know that it's a bit of information that they don't want out in a particular timing, such as right now. Say you have someone break into your home, and then you yell at them, "I do not consent for you to be here." That person would just probably shoot you. That's exactly the same things that go on in the galaxy. There are breaking and enterings. There are pirate type of people that raid ships. All of it. Do you think the crews consent to this? No. This is more of an asinine way of thinking. It is very, very good that you do not consent to any of this behavior. It doesn't mean they must obey. That is some form of universal law.
And that's where they went into New Age and mucked it all up. Yes. Because they decided, well, how are we going to convince people they really did consent? We're going to make up this whole lie. And we're going to basically say that, obviously there's a mirror going on and there's something you need to see or whatever, because it doesn't happen because you have universal free will. And if you say no, it can't happen. So if it's happening, it must be because somewhere along the line, there's something here that you must learn. Mm-hmm. And so that's how the New Age movement and some of these other movements, how they were used to continually manipulate people into a belief system that is totally fabricated for someone else's agenda. So the truth is, overage does occur. Mm-hmm. And again, it's been happening a lot. And again, I don't know where I came up with 80%. I thought it was interesting. I'm like, where did I come up with 80%? That 80% of the people that appear to be as if they're being controlled are literally being oppressed, controlled. That it's not as that the vast majority of the people are. I thought actually 20% was kind of generous. So I'm curious what your that meaning that 20% of the people want the experience to kind of be on and experience what it's like to be on these other side and open portals and do problems or literally understand what they're doing on a level and wanted to do it. But that 80% of the people really don't want it and are truly being oppressed. What yes. Are good statistics?
You are absolutely correct. It is actually a smaller percentage that actually willfully tried it out. Let's just say like you're trying out a new pair of pants or shoes. That's a smaller percentage. The others are being oppressed, very much like he was mentioning on the show yesterday, the landscapers that were causing the noise issues and the whatnot. And then someone else confronted them other than himself for once. This is what also allowed this to pass. He was at a particular point where he could not confront them. He just had to let it slide on by. Those particular people, as humorous as that was, there was some other good control going on to make it more humorous and more laughable. But this is why the other home person, or the person in the house over there, got involved, because she found it to be fairly stupid. We added a humor aspect into it in the form of knitting what the control waves were coming in, so that the time clock they had to commit the distractive action was in more of a humorous way, which then counteracted a little bit of it. It was also because he did not react to it. Yes, there are aspects of the non-reaction that are true, but you are correct in your ratio, Joanna, that it is actually more of a minority that have come in to experience it willfully. The others are under pure and unadulterated oppression.
So that's really, again, I can't stress that enough. Please, we have to get out of looking for someone to blame, and we oftentimes will blame the victim because we don't know who else to blame. So that's a human trait that can happen sometimes, and we have to get ourselves out of doing that. The other thing, again, I see things and things happen, and I always am curious whether or not I was being just completely and utterly met with, and I didn't see that at all or not. But it is an interesting thing, because if there's any truth to it whatsoever, I think it's relevant to the conversation. So when it was getting towards morning this morning, I was kind of, a little bit of half awake, half asleep. And I heard somebody in my head say this kind of like a nasty hello, right? Kind of like, yeah, right. Like, but it irritated the crap out of me so much at that moment that I said, I need to see where this is coming from, right? Where literally is this person? So what was interesting, again, and if somebody was playing with me, just let me know. And it wasn't true what I saw. But what I'm curious about is, does this occur anyway? Even if it was a play with me this morning, does this actually occur? Because what I literally saw as the vision started coming was plane windows. I saw a few plane windows, and I'm like, I'm in a plane. And in the plane, it was interesting, because you have to think that the plane was completely not a passenger plane. It was probably a military plane or something like that. But it was interesting because it had areas where people were working in this interesting desk setup that kind of went a little ovally, that I think 2 people were sitting there, and then other things were going on. And it reminded me a little bit of the fact that, is it true you literally have military or whomever up in planes that may be intentionally focusing on certain people? You know what I mean? I don't know why exactly they do it. So I don't know if I was just being messed with or not when I saw that, but for some reason, I feel that concept needs to come up here right now, and I don't know why. So I'm hoping you'll help me.
Yes, there are indeed aircraft that do target specific people that have been in the programs, for instance, that may have forgotten that they were in. In some cases, it's usually a handler that takes care of 9/10 of that activity. But there are some people, there are interruptions in this. There are some people that they will target with aircraft, flyovers, for instance, with helicopters, planes, drones, all of these different things. Even for an individual, this may seem arcane or asinine and a extreme waste of resources, but you are dealing with people that have an extreme or nearly infinite amount of monetary resources to commit to these particular actions. They do not do it all the time, mind you. But yes, they do send people to watch people on ground level. You would call them gang stalkers. This does happen. And some people are just also made to believe that it is happening to them. For the most part, again, anybody that's of real big importance, they send handlers in to manicure them away from finding out certain truths. Other targeted individuals do have aircraft like what you were seeing. And in some cases, the aircrafts have groups of people in that are analyzing different behaviors or analyzing or working on what you would see as a pad to actually monitor the individual and different behaviors and different places they're going. And also this hamster wheel effect from these energies, how these things are all working and meshing together. Again, you would think this was a colossal waste of people and resources and employees. To them, they do not care. They will utilize whatever they need to utilize. This is another farce, whereas they are burning out their energies to do this. I hate to say this, folks, but yes, are there beings on their way out? Absolutely so. Is it that particular set of beings you saw in the dream sequence? No, they seem to think they have an infinite amount of monetary resources and personnel resources, even to focus on an individual.
Which is very interesting, because to think that that's the type of resource they would have to use goes to show that it ain't that easy for them. Mm-hmm. Because, they may be like, oh, I got plenty of resources, I'm going to do this or whatever. But the fact that that's how they have to do it it goes to show that they are not this omnipotent evil side either, because look what they're having to do to try to collect even information off people. So I think, to me, what it says is that they're not able to monitor everyone 24/7. They're not able to do that. And so, but they want you to think they are, because they love it for people to have that paranoia. So they want people to have these types of paranoia because it keeps them, again, still circling, cul-de-sacking, because now they're all just paranoid about who's watching them, instead of just saying you're monitored every now and then. Get over that fact and live your life, because that in itself is a cul-de-sacking type of.
And this is also an interesting point to bring up. People are monitored online 24/7, even through artificial intelligence means that invade their dreamscapes and pull the thoughts out and put them on your Facebook, for instance. There are no safe technologies that you can use to block this, other than what you guys have been creating, you see, to block a lot of this. This is also why you get the extra attention, is because of your devices, you see, to try to hone in easier on a particular target. You may think, well, they already know where we live. Why are they going through this elaborate dance or song and dance? Well, it's because they choose to operate stupidly like that, in that particular respect. So anybody watching this now or in the future, just know that you are always monitored within that particular ether, either by alien forces or by governmental. Not 100% of the time. They don't have the capability of being omnipotent. They have the capability of appearing like they are omnipotent. It's more of an act. But no, your computers and your phones can monitor those same actions from a distance. So they can then collect that data later on and check it out. They are not always have eyes on you, like remote viewers. A lot of them are data collectors, even some of the children ones. They can't get everything, but they can collect little snippets and put it together like a puzzle. Well, this is also how they are doing this. This may seem really stupid and non-productive, but this is also how they've been gathering information for quite some time, because they're having to do this for a lot of people. They cannot. This proves they cannot monitor 100% of the time, because of the fact that they're having to spread their resources. But remember, they still have a nearly infinite amount of money and an infinite amount of resources that they can pull from other people. Sometimes they abduct them to use them as those particular resources. So you're also fighting targeted versus abducted, as he likes to say. Those are victims of the process as well. So some of the people that he has also been firing pot shots at, as far as remote viewing goes, are some of these victims as well. They hope that people go against each other, just like on street level, with that very same programming. Very much like the person he spoke about in the hotel room that had to duck people. It's the very same set of circumstances, where even if these people don't know you, that programming drops into them. People like to call this the Mr. Smith program, based on the Matrix movie, where it drops into them through their crown, or up through the floor, or in through their back, and takes them over. And that programming, and also those remote viewers or whoever wants to possess that person, will recognize you and harass you. Sometimes it's the people, most of the time it's the programming. This is what was going on with the people outside yesterday that were acting very, very stupidly. The same with the ones in Nebraska that he encountered. It's the very same thing. And also at times people have been saying it seems not to lose pace. There's also a truth to this, to keep you away from other things that you need to focus on.
And I think that's key. And we're also susceptible of having things come in that will keep us from doing what we're meant to do. They're very good at it. And no one is beyond their attempts to try and cul-de-sac you. So you have to be aware of it so that you can recognize if you are potentially, falling into it, so you can break out of it. And I don't actually think I actually think for some, it isn't as hard to break out once the awareness is there. I think for others, it is still harder to break out, even if you're trying to contemplate it. And again, should we be still using the word? Is it okay to use the word building codexes? Is that an acceptable way of describing the skills to grow out of this? I'm not sure.
Yes, you can still utilize these terms. Eventually, you will find that these terms will change as well.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. You know, I was already getting an inkling that, you know, we're with Chris and what we do, we always know that we're getting information, but we always know it's going to expand. And then the way we described something before with the expansion of information, it's most likely going to maybe change a little bit. So I always am wondering, are we there yet? But with the new way to explain something. So anyway, I think Chris, I don't know why I'm getting a sense that Chris is a little uncomfortable. So I'm going to let you wrap this up with him.
Yes, the conduit is making it fairly difficult, causing different bodily, not necessarily damage, but different nervous inklings, and the nervous system and the musculature is not handling it as well. This also had to do with the illness that he had as well, that the channeling conduit isn't as lengthy and tolerant as before. It will build back in time like a muscle. But this was one of the things that some of the bad guys wished to try to disable and dissuade him from doing in this respect, and some of his work, which again will also morph and change as things move along, very much like the understandings of these terms and the way things truly operate. Again, you will see another leap in this information. The Venusians like to do the slow drip, which I respect personally, but at the same time, you can do leaps and bounds of information as well that also apply to that slow drip method, like what we've done today. So in this instance, I will allow the conduit to close. It was a much narrower one today, that also around the openings of the conduit, there were things firing at both of your chests and heads. So in this instance, I will do our send off. Thank you for allowing this today. Me and Elena and the others will be in touch like we always have. And we've always been in at least some small observance of you, even during the ill times. So thank you. Yeah, it's fairly uncomfortable, actually. It's like
Yeah, you were
like
very fidgety.
yeah, it was my left arm was starting to go to sleep and everything, so I had to hang my left arm over, or I had to do this with my hand, and it was starting to swell around my ring hand here really hard. But it was like the energy was fairly uncomfortable trying that. It was the conduit was, if I could describe how they do this, it's kind of like a cone, and it's the cone tends to do this kind of clock move as it closes like this, and then it sucks in and closes. That's how the people of Ver were trying to get to us at one time during the rainstorms and everything. It was a narrow one. This one was like maybe the size of a softball, where it was slowly kind of doing this. And that's what they mean by the conduit, is they're attempting to kind of match it with some of the energy revolutions. And they have, per each day or each moment, sometimes they have to align it smaller or larger, depending on what the energies are doing. And it was only like here. That's why it was uncomfortable, because around the event horizon of this, you had other things going boom, 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 trying to disrupt it. So that's why, when you do channelings and stuff like this, it's sometimes on one day it's not as good, and on some days it's phenomenal. So that you can go a lengthier period. Some days it appears the downloads never end. Oh, and some days it appears like nothing's ever going to come through. So it's like that. So anybody doing this work, if they say they can do this completely on a whim every moment of every day, they're full of it, because it's based on how the energies are on a particular day or a particular moment. Can I, when the beings around, couple and discouple very quickly? Yes. Some people have questioned me on that before, how I do it so quickly. It's just how I was wired.
Well, you've got now. You've improved the timeliness of this over time.
Yeah, and where I could operate.
Yeah, it
like
took
that.
a lot. It took longer before.
Yeah, and also I have a bit of wiring that's slightly different as well. So, they for whatever reason they're having to deal with something. It's fairly disorienting, actually, and it's a very tiring energy. Even though I was ill, and that's what caused some of the tiring, there is a tiring, very slow, progressive like dampening, like rolling energy field that is very, very toxic. And it is just very toxic. I'll probably have to burn some incense or do something outside or something like that to break some of this up. But it's today is one of those days that channeling probably wasn't completely advisable, but there was a small window. So if you see me at an event or anything like that, or us at an event or something, and you see me not do anything like I've done in the past, it means the energy sucks and I can't do it. Or if I'm in a dense area and can't do sessions or something like that, that's the reason. It means the energy sucks too much for me to be able to do it. And some people think I can just clear it at the snap of a finger, because I do sometimes that in sessions, and that's not necessarily true. Sometimes it takes much more extensive work, like a property we cleared that was satanic in nature. It required boots on the ground, more extensive work to re-knit those energies and get the earth energies to retake over. It's not always as simple as like Q on Star Trek one, like that. It's not. It may appear that way from your people's end, but it's not from mine. I'm actually doing a lot of work simultaneously and doing all this multitasking in the background while I'm talking to people. So I just wanted to put that out there as well. So I believe, do you have anything else to add?
No.
I think we're good at the end of the recording, because we've gone over about an hour and a half. So
I don't think we dated this.
okay, yeah, today's date is 11/20/2021. That's where some of this harsh energies come from, but at the same time we got those downloads to come through this morning. So I think we can end this here. Thank you for watching this discussion with me and Joanna, or I should say Stevie Wonder over here with the glasses, or Ray Charles, whichever you prefer, whichever era you're from. And thank you for subscribing to this Patreon channel, or wherever this video pops up in subscription form in the not too distant future. So thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.